In compliance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-2920 in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak, the district will conduct the Board of Education's meeting as a teleconference. Given the health risk associated with COVID-19, the Newport-Mesa Unified School District has decided not to open the boardroom to the public. Spanish interpretation will be available via the Zoom link. Good afternoon, everyone. Roll call, Ms. Amezwa.
Trustee Yelsey.
Here.
Trustee Barto. Trustee Barto.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Here.
Trustee Matoye.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Crane. I got that. Trustee Ursoilu.
Here.
Trustee Weigand.
Here.
And Mr. Lee Sung. Thank you.
Here.
Community input on closed session agenda items only. We have no comments, so Trustee Matoye, you don't need to read. We will now move into closed session. The items are 4A, conference with legal counsel, 1 case. 4B, consultation with security consultant. 4C, threat to public services or facilities. 4D, conference with labor negotiator. 4E, public employee discipline, dismissal, release, employment. 4F, conference with legal counsel number 30021030. And 4G, student discipline, 1 case. We will return to open session at 6 p.m. with 1 readout. Thank you. Now, would all board members please log out and log into our closed session? Now 6 p.m. and we will begin our regular meeting. In compliance with Governor Newsom's Executive Order N-2920, in response to the ongoing COVID-19 outbreak, the district will conduct the Board of Education's meeting as a teleconference. Given the health risk associated with COVID-19, the Newport-Mesa Unified School District has decided not to open the boardroom to the public. Spanish interpretation will be available via Zoom link. Before we start, I do have a readout from closed session. In closed session, the Board of Education took action to approve agreement for case number 300210030. The roll call, the motion was approved by Trustee Matoye, seconded by Trustee Weigand. The roll call vote was 7 ayes, 0 noes. We'll now have an opening ceremony with a moment of reflection and pledge to the flag led by Trustee Matoye, and please rise.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I will ask for a motion to approve the agenda, but I have a couple of things. First, I want to say, 1, approve it by also, we are pulling 2 items, item 14A4 and 14A7. And then I also want to recommend that we adjourn the meeting in memory of Sandy Asper, who passed away last week. Sandy was a teacher in Newport-Mesa for 40 years and was beloved by so many students, community members, and fellow teachers. Sandy was never one to shy away from engaging conversation about our schools and education in general. She was a very involved parent in the Newport community with her own children, and as an educator was a passionate supporter of Newport-Mesa Federation of Teachers throughout her adult life. Sandy will be missed by many in the Newport-Mesa family, and collectively, we will miss her as part of our board meeting audience. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I would move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Bartos, seconded by Trustee Crane. Roll call vote, Ms. Amezcua.
Trustee Yelsey.
Yes.
Trustee Barto.
Yes.
Trustee Matoye,
Yes.
Trustee Simpson,
Yes.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Urso,
Yes.
Trustee Weigand.
Yes.
Adoption of minutes from 3:30:21, 4:6:21, 8:21. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by trustee
Ligand.
Wagon. Moved by trustee Matoye, seconded by trustee One. Roll call vote.
Trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
Trustee Ho,
Yes.
Trustee Matoye,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson, Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Ursulou,
Yes.
Trustee Weigand.
Yes.
Item 10, board member reports. And their topic they were given was impressive first week of a full schedule. Actually, today is probably the first full day, but I'm sure they can give us some input. So we will start with Elizabeth Levy.
Hello, I believe I'm doing the roll call vote for today, and I believe that Paulina and
Bailey is the alternate.
You're on mute.
Oh, I was just gonna say, today I'm doing the roll call. I believe Bailey and Paulina are reporting for Brittany and Maddie on this topic.
Bob, do you have? Working better.
Okay. Hello. I believe I'm doing the roll call vote today, and I think we're gonna have Bailey and Paulina reporting today on going back in person, since I'm from Cloud Campus. So I'll let them do their report.
So is Pauline?
Hi everyone, my name is Paulina Enriquez, and I will be reporting on going back to school. So we came back to school, early college came back to school on Monday, and it was pretty good. Everybody was pretty happy about seeing their friends again. And in the classrooms, we tried to make everything like socially distant as much as we could, because again, we are a small school, so I mean, the class sizes are smaller. But regardless of that, we try to be socially distant in all matters. And yeah, so we're just trying to get people accustomed to going back to school, and we have a Spirit Week planned out, and it's been going pretty good. Everything's socially distant, and people seem to be having a lot of fun. They're just mainly everybody's pretty much happy to see their friends again, and I can see the teachers are also pretty happy to see their students again, with the exception of cohort C. Although one of my teachers does say that the maneuvering between cohort C and the actual like people who are at school can be a little frustrating sometimes, because she's teaching two different groups at the same time. So other than that, it's been pretty good.
And Bailey Bogard, do we have Bailey?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bailey Bogard, representing Newport Harbor High School. So actually, Newport Harbor came back completely, with both cohorts today. And it was honestly, it was really nice being back personally. It was kind of hard to get there, kind of hard to commit and go back to school and, put on the clothes and be ready to see everyone. But once we did that and made that easy step to get there, it was a great day. My day has gone by a lot faster. I feel a lot motivated as a human. I feel a lot motivated, a lot more motivated. And I'm just very, very glad to be back. So thank you guys for the decision to bring us back as well. And it's great as a senior to have this. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bailey. We will not be having Harbor Council PTA tonight. Lisa Bowler contacted me and she had a family click. So we will pass on that until next month. Is Tamara Fairbanks here?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Good evening, board and honored guests. This week, participating personnel had its highs and its lows. This week, we had the opportunity to see the bright, happy faces of all of our students. It is clear in the way the staff encouraged them to distance. The staff invested their time to make sure that every child is happy and safe. And we just have these questions. Why did it take emergency personnel 20 minutes to find an Williams field? How come we do not have emergency push boards on an incident? Why do we still haven't received our promised cleaning supplies for elementary specialists to assist with 100 students? And how come we still have these questions even though we started? We are excited and extremely excited to work with our students and see them on a regular basis. Because as we go over and beyond to keep our students safe, we expect everyone to keep our community, students, and workers safe. This past week, we lost a cherished friend to NMUSD. Sandy Asper was a voice for many teachers and showcased many wonderful people and activities that we were doing in our classrooms. She joins the heavenly gates with many of the wonderful trailblazers in NMFT's past. Sandy is an example that being a teacher and a union member goes beyond the classroom and beyond teaching career. The caring for others, the standing up for one another is part of the DNA that permeates throughout the classroom walls. We thank Sandy, as well as our many predecessors, for paving that way so we can continue the mantle of doing what is best for our coworkers, our community, and our students. Thank you.
One more time, Carrie. Could repeat that one time.
Pam Saunders is Pam Zoom.
Good evening, President Yelsey, Board, Superintendent Lee-Sung, Cabinet, and guests. Thank you for this opportunity from CSEA. First and foremost, we'd like to thank all of our classified employees throughout the district for all their hard work and dedication during the pandemic. Our positive impact is not done yet. We are very grateful to every classified employee for their hard work. CSEA has been an integral part in getting us where we are today and will continue to help to lead the way to educational normalcy. We would still like to continue the safety measures of all students and staff at schools and work sites, now that all schools are back full day in-person instruction. CSEA wants to ensure that classified members' needs and concerns are addressed for a safe, smooth opening. There is a continued impact to our district workforce. This creates an unsafe environment for students as the remaining staff is overworked, stressed, and scared. We'd like to remind everyone to continue to wear a mask and social distance. Again, thank you again for this opportunity, CSEA Chapter 18.
Thank you very, very much. Next, we have community input on agenda items. Trustee Metoyer.
We don't have it. Oh,
Yes, we do.
On agenda items, we do.
do you want to read?
I got to,
She has to read first.
Speakers wishing to address the board agendized items have submitted the appropriate comment card on the district website later than 11 a.m. today, Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. Comments on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. Speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person. Okay, there were 8 comment cards received on agendized items. We'll take all of them and do I have the,
Regarding the 15D, you want to do it at
There-
the time of when we get to them?
yes, unless someone wants to speak now, should,
They can.
if someone on the item 15D, is it 15? 7, I'm sorry, 17.
15D.
15, we'd like to speak now, otherwise we'll wait until we have the presentation and on that specific item. Is there anyone in the Zoom room waiting that would like to speak now versus when we address the issue?
It'd be easier if we just wait till it.
Okay, we'll wait. Okay, superintendent comments. Mr. Superintendent Lee-Sung.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep my comments brief today because we have quite a few items on this in action. But I want to again acknowledge the fact that our district took a very important step, something that I know our trustees have been committed to from the very beginning, is to get students back full-time as soon as possible, of course, when safe to do. And last Wednesday, as we know, our elementary students came back full-time. And what a day it was. And the feedback that we received from everybody was really one of the most memorable, kind of events in not only our recent time and career, but I was hearing from folks that in their entire career, this is going to be those days that they will never forget. And I will tell you, I also share in those same sentiments. And while we had students come back and having them meet and play there and learn with their classmates was incredible. To see some pictures of what school sites had to welcome our students back in what some schools are calling their back to school day, and coming up with very creative activities where kids can safely play and socialize with each other. But more importantly, the learning that place all kids in the classroom at one time. What an incredible moment this was for our district. And I need to say that as smooth and as easy it looked, if you ask any of our employees, our classified, our teachers, our principals, all district departments supported that. There was a lot of work that went into it from the moment the board gave the go-ahead to support this direction. We went to work, and from the district level all the way down to the site level to the classroom level, everybody stepped up to make that happen. But what a day it was. And then this week, opening up secondary, and as we know, the challenges, some similar, but very unique to secondary. And again, I give great recognition and acknowledgement to the work of our administrators, the staff at the secondary schools and other departments that supported them. And it's great to hear from our students and reporting. It was a really great day. And the report I got from principals out of Costa Mesa High School earlier today, and it was wonderful to see the kids back. And at the school level, when things are routine and things go smoothly, that's a great day. And that's what Principal Haley was saying, is that, it was great. Kids came to school, they went to class, and it seemed very routine. but again, a lot of work behind the scenes, and I give a lot of credit to the entire team for that. And, you know, I did a video message last week, and I made a acknowledgement, and I want to say it again today, is the fact that we really do appreciate our parents, because we know our parents had to step up throughout this pandemic to support their students, their children at home. And we know that's been very hard. And we wish it would have been a lot sooner, but we got here. It's safe for the kids to come and learn on site. So thank all of our parents for their efforts and sacrifices at home as well. I want to move to a different topic, something I'm also excited to share, and our board is fully aware, our principals are aware, that we're working very hard to review proposed activities, student activities, all the things that we really love and cherish at school sites. You know, we've had put on hold, but now that the state has come out with some guidance, we have some rules to play with, and our site administrators are looking at the guidance, looking at what proposed activities are, running that by the district so that we can support that. And I understand that there is some drama performances as just occurred last week that some of you attended. You know, what a great step again towards normalcy to get our students doing the things that they love and that we love to support. So there will be more and more of these activities, but again, we got to do it safely. Got to follow the guidance, and we're being very careful of that. But little by little, these things are coming back. And with that being said, our county continues to decline. I looked at the numbers as of today, and the case rate again starts to inch lower towards yellow, and we're now down to 2.6 cases per 100,000 case rate, and it's a 0.2 lower than it was last week. So we keep moving, and that's the criteria that we need to keep moving down so we can get to yellow. And what that means is if we can get to yellow tier in our county, it means greater capacity in some of these events and performances. Okay, so again, we need to collectively keep following the rules, doing our part, get our numbers down, and little by little, I believe we're going to get there. And our positivity rate stayed at 1.4, but that's already in the yellow category. So let's all do our part with that. And the last thing I want to mention is that springtime is the time we start preparing for the next school year. And we are very much busy and working on the plans and the staffing and the enrollment and building the master schedules and all the things we do behind the scenes. I just saw a long list of summer projects that are going to occur in terms of improving and maintaining our facilities. All of this is in high gear right now. It's an exciting time. We're closing the year, but we're also very deep into the planning for next school year. And we will be sharing some announcements in terms of what we'll be doing in the fall. But again, I want to restate our commitment that in the fall, we plan to be full day, full time at all of our schools, TK-12 in the district. So just wanted to repeat that is our commitment. And we know the guidance continues to evolve. It evolves in the right direction, So that will only help us meet that commitment that we've already made. Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Superintendent Lee-Sung. And I think we all would agree that this has been the happiest week that we've had all year, getting our students back and just seeing the principals and the parents on social media, all the wonderful things that have been going on. So well done to everybody involved. And as you said, it was not as easy as it may look. So we appreciate everyone in making this happen. We'll now move to the consent calendar.
I move adoption of the consent calendar as amended at the beginning of the meeting.
Second.
Moved by trustee Metoyer, seconded by trustee Wygan. Call vote.
Trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
Trustee Bo,
Yes.
Trustee Metoyer,
Yes.
Trustee N.
Yes, and when we're done voting, if I could comment, please.
Trustee Crane,
Yes.
Trustee Ursulou,
Yes.
Trustee Wigand.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson, I didn't hear your comment.
Oh, I said when we're done voting, if I could make a comment, please.
Okay.
I
I was just wondering, I know Mr. got back to me on 14B1 about the school plans for student achievement, and the current precedent is that members of the community or future teachers or anyone who needs to a principal of that school to get that information. And I was just wondering what the process would look like, or how we could have discussion about possibly posting that with the agenda item when we're discussing or they're brought forward, but also if there is a platform on our website, because I think it's important information. If I was a parent at one school, for maybe elementary, and I wanted to find out what the offer were at other schools for middle school, I would not necessarily have time to go to the principal, and our principal's time is very limited. So just to have that kind of basic information, I think on our website would be wonderful.
And I meant to bring this up because student board members actually asked to see to know how to find that planned student achievement in our meeting. So if we could just let them know if they were interested in their own school, how they would find that out, because they asked me yesterday and I didn't know the answer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, discussion action item 15A, approve the service agreement between Paper Education Company and Newport-Mesa Unified School District for secondary education. Mr. Ray? Oh,
No, don't we move first? Do we move first, just or you explain first? Got it. Sorry. It's only been 6 years. I don't know why. I should know.
Good evening. We are recommending that you approve the service agreement tonight with Paper Education Company, which is an online tutoring platform for our secondary students. I'm going to go over the process of how they were elected. And Lisa Snowden, our coordinator of career counseling, will go over some features of Paper and our implementation next steps. We need to give credit as due, and I want to know that Lisa Snowden did all of the heavy lift on this. She did all the research, she did all of the background on it. My role is really facilitating the meetings with the principals, the teachers, and the students that were involved in the process and the selection process, but she really did all of the hard work. And so she did the research. She came to these 3 companies. She checked with school districts throughout the county to know what they were using and what they were happy with what they were happy with features they thought were important and which they didn't feel important. We met with the principals and went over it with them and let them know we had these 3 companies and gave them the features. They wanted if we could have a presentation and invite teachers and students to the presentation as well. And I said, sure. So Lisa set that up, and when we had the presentation with all 3 of the companies, the principals, teachers, and students were able to ask them questions and were able to give their feedback on what they liked and didn't like with each of the 3 products. One of us clearly not favored by the group. They kind of honed in on 2 of them. Paper was definitely our favorite one, but they had questions about that. So Lisa went to both of those companies, got some feedback from them, came back and let them know that we felt that Paper was the way to go. And one of the big reasons is their customer service. She had trouble getting answers from the other company, and Paper was on it. They were on top of it. They're also the most utilized company throughout the county. They got great recommendations from everybody and felt very, very comfortable with moving forward with Paper. Some of the features that we looked at when we were looking at 3 companies was what is the model that they use? How can our kids go on? When can they go on? What support grades do they use? What classes are available? Price obviously is important. Availability, is it available year-round? Is it just during the school year? What kind of platform use? Is there video? Is there chat? Is there text? Can I upload documents? Another important one is wait time. Once a student goes on, how long is it before they're actually hooked up with the tutor? How long do they have to sit there and wait? Also the technology, because we know that a lot of our students access these things with their phones. So we wanted to make sure that whatever device kids wanted to access with, they would have the ability to. Also reports. We wanted reports back from the company on who's using it, how much are they using it, what time of day, what classes are they utilizing. Also the staff, who are the tutors? What is training? What's their background? How do they screen the tutors? Another part that we felt was important is to have session feedback from the teachers and from the student, whether they liked it, they like whatever. So we had that conversation going back and forth companies so we could utilize it to our students' best interest. And finally, the last thing was staff training is whatever company we decided to go with. We needed to have somebody who could really get our staff up to speed, because our teachers are really have to be the one that pushes with their students and let them know that, while I'm available, you can at any time, you can get help, you can get support, you can turn in your papers, they'll look at it, they'll give you advice. And so the features that we looked at when we looked at the three companies. And so I'm going to turn it over to Lisa and let her talk about the specifics behind paper and why we chose paper.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bauermeister. As he said, paper is a online tutoring support service available to students 24/7 on demand for homework help, essay writing help, and study help. Why did we choose paper? Really, their platform, when we looked at it, was the most user-friendly and engaging looking, and really should be very intuitive for students. In fact, they kind of modeled their chat feature after, some very popular social media chat functions. So again, very intuitive for students. As Dr. Bauermeister mentioned, it's device agnostic. They did develop a native app so that students can still access the service using their mobile phones, which we know most students use. We really like papers because their service is used throughout the United States and Canada, districts here in California. So we had local school districts like Irvine, Tustin, Santa Ana, Orange, and Huntington Beach, just to name a few. And when I did my research and reached out to folks in these districts, they shared extremely positive feedback, not only about the platform and the service and the students' experience, but also about their customer service. And speaking of their service, I found them to be very responsive and engaged through every step of this process. And if this is approved, we will be assigned a customer success agent who will be working collaboratively with us as a partner to maximize use and engagement, not only during the initial implementation, but actually for the entirety of our service agreement, which is great. We like that the tutors will support students using the Socratic method. So they're not giving answers, but rather walking students through ways to think about the concepts and how to approach a problem. They have tutors available in 4 languages, which is quite impressive. But of course, English and Spanish being the most important to our student population. Dr. Bauermeister mentioned wait time. And so the average wait time for students to connect to a tutor and for their writing assignments to be returned back to the student was lower than any other service we reviewed. For security and quality control, interactions are recorded, and both parties can leave feedback about that interaction. And then teachers, school site, and district administrators have access to data to monitor use and inform curriculum. And one of the services we looked at wasn't going to be rostering the teachers, so we felt it was important that teachers had that access. So you're probably wondering what the next steps are, and it really kind of revolves around 3 things. So technical setup 1, staff training 2, and communication and promotion of this service. So the first step is to roster secondary students into the platform via ClassLink. ClassLink is a launchpad for apps and services that are used here in the district. This could take up to 2 weeks to create the student, teacher, and administrator accounts. So paper projects it could be another 2 weeks after that to go live, and then students can access the service via ClassLink. So while the back of the house is working on the technical setup, we can focus on the front of the house with training of and communication to stakeholders. So because we're this far into the year, we'd probably be looking at a soft launch to support students now and during summer, with a more formal launch at the beginning of next school year. Paper has asynchronous training materials available for both administrators and teachers. So that would be very helpful. And we could make that available to summer teachers, or maybe it would be decided to offer a synchronous PD for them. And then we would roll out a full PD at the start of the 21-22 school year. Lastly, once the contract is signed, Paper provides us with access to a shared marketing drive containing materials to assist with promotion, such as flyers, which can also be made into posters, social media campaigns, all of which can be customized with our logo. So we don't have to necessarily start from scratch if we don't want to. In collaboration with our customer success agent, Educational Services Department will work with Public Information Office and other district staff and secondary principals to devise a comprehensive communication plan. And typically in this situation, the district would send out a general announcement. So it could be an email to secondary parents, or they feature a news item on the website, letting folks know that this service is available to students. And then the school sites would follow up via different channels, such as their website, maybe social media, and School Loop with more details about how students can access the service. I can continue outreach to surrounding districts who use the service to discuss successes and challenges. In fact, I've already spoken to Dr. Ryan Smith from Paramount USD, who's had great success in growing student use in such a short amount of time. So that's a little bit about why we chose Paper and some of their features and what our next steps are. And with that, we're happy to take your questions.
I cannot see on here, so do we have any questions?
I'm totally impressed and wish like this was available years ago when I was in school.
I just had one comment. I saw we're doing this. I heard probably the most requests of anything was for additional tutoring from parents. So this is great that we're going to be able to offer this to district.
And start it for the summer.
One of the things that's really impressive is the breadth of offerings that they have as well. And I know one of the things that we've all struggled with is get high-end tutors for our kids in calculus and biology, and they have tutors available for all of those subjects also. So only will help our struggling students, our higher-end students that need extra help and support. It's available as well.
Trustee Crane.
Snowden, they are California-based company. I'm just curious if, I'm assuming that they are very familiar with the California standards and course offerings so that they can focus on California kids.
Actually from Canada, but they're in a lot of our Orange County school districts right now, and they have been working with for the last at least several years. That right, Lisa?
2 or 3 years, yeah.
They're all over. Are all the tutors in Canada? Or I mean, I would assume they'd have
Online, so I think a lot of them are probably in Canada, but they're probably all over the country, I would imagine. There are a lot of first, second year teachers, I think, making extra money.
Yeah. Trustee Ann?
Thank you. Yes, I echo. Thank you for finding a tutoring program that has so much access and is so affordable. I think it can even meet some of the needs of our IB students, and it really covers a wide gamut. And I am echoing Trustee Bartov also tutoring is one of the top needs. And I was wondering too, if we have any ideas for tutoring elementary as well. That's going to be something that is offered sometime soon. I know that has waiting to open, but something as a top priority as well.
Mr. Drake's coming up.
Yes, thank you. A quick response to that. So it has been a challenge here for elementary, all of our schools without allowing visitors in and so forth. I think mentioned in the past, Kathleen Jaquin has brought back our Project Kid Connect staff, and they are currently tutoring online at our I think nine of our 10 Title I schools, and we'll continue that and actually bring them back in person. Fingers crossed in fall, continue those supports. And we are looking into other outreach programs moving forward.
Would that be an opportunity, and if we're able to hopefully possibly bring back some volunteers soon. If we're able to possibly do that, if we're able to have some of the project kids connect back on site, because I know virtual tutoring for elementary is really tricky.
Yep. Project Kids Connect are not yet on campus. I don't believe. I think everything virtually. But as far as volunteers go, I know with staffing coming up and all of those pieces, bringing in volunteers and processing volunteers is going to be difficult between the end of the school year.
Yes. I was having a conversation with Dr. Lee Sung the other day about the possibility of perhaps the option to have some in-person volunteers. So I was just thinking if that's an option to have parents come back and other community helpers, but then and also for something as essential as after-school tutoring, or even having some of our intervention teachers helping in the afternoon with our elementary students in person.
So first of all, to answer your question about volunteers, we're not there yet in terms of bringing our volunteers back. I know that we have some volunteers that would be very eager to come back and help our schools, and we so appreciate that. But we're not quite there yet. As you know, we just took our big step, bringing everybody back. We have already increased our hourly support at all of our schools throughout the district. And really, that's the primary support. We got to support the core, support the intervention systems and programs that are already in place. And of course, we would love to add additional layer. And we will get there. We will get there, but we're not quite there yet with volunteers.
This school year, though, for elementary?
Excuse me?
For one or the other, for Project Kids Connect or volunteers, or both for this school year? Is that a possibility? It's not 100% off the table, right?
It's I can't predict exactly when that's going to be, but
Okay.
Keeping in mind, when we bring volunteers on campus, that means more bodies, more adults on campus, and I think we got to take this a step by step. Everyone's concerned with having any additional bodies. We just added our kids. That's who we want on our campus. And of course, we want our employees, but we'll take it a step at a time. We would love to, that would be another step towards normalcy.
Yeah, ideally, the Project Kids Connect, some are almost viewed as staff. So if we can bring them back as soon as possible for elementary, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to adopt paper, educational support for secondary education.
Second.
Who was the second? I'm sorry.
Dr. Ursulou.
Dr. Ursulou. It's really tough with these masks and not knowing where the sound is coming from. Moved by trustee Weigand, seconded by trustee Ursulou. Roll call vote.
Student Board Member Elizabeth Levy.
Yes.
Yelsey.
Yes.
Trustee Barto.
Yes.
Trustee.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
Yes.
Trustee Crane. Trustee Ursulou.
Yes.
Trustee Weigand.
Yes.
Thank you. I think that's going to be helpful to many people. So great work. 15, approve temporary waiver to board policy 61461, high school graduation requirements to accommodate the senior summer graduation program.
Hi, good evening, board. I am going to present this item, and then we also have Dr. D'Agostino magically appear on the screen so available to present any information on this. And essentially what we're looking for is another way to help some of our seniors who have been struggling since COVID began and do not currently have enough credits to graduate. And at semester, we were looking at about 27 kids. We know now it's probably increased somewhat, and it could be anywhere from 50 to 100 kids that are 20 or less credits short of graduation. And the requirements that board follows and that we follow in the district is that you have to have completed all those credits by the end of the school year in order to be considered graduated from Newport-Mesa Unified School District. So what we're looking for is to waive that board policy just until October and allow those students who are within 20 credits to continue and attend our summer school programs through our high schools, to attend adult ed, to any program they can find, and to submit the credits to the district by a certain date in September in order to still get a diploma from Newport-Mesa Unified. They are not allowed to walk at graduation. So that does not waive that requirement. You still have to, and sometimes we know that when students walk at graduation, they don't have the incentive to continue. So that's what we're asking for tonight is the opportunity for us to waive that requirement in a short interim to some of these seniors graduated. Is there anything you need to add, Dr. D'Agostino, to that?
No, Dr. Jocham, that was succinct and comprehensive. Thank you.
I think it's a great recommendation. Do any comments?
Would it be possible to get an update as weeks get closer, like maybe the end of May, if there are some that have somehow completed, or just so we have a better, as it gets closer to the final countdown? I would love that. And then also when we're done vote, if you want to explain your shirt and tell everyone about the month coming, that'd be great.
Okay. Thank you. So the time counselors are really are working with all of their students' campuses, and also a lot of the assistant principals and high school principals will often adopt a certain set of students and make sure they're encouraging them. So we will be able to provide ongoing numbers of where we are with the students. My shirt is really applicable to a coming up board item where we're honoring Mental Health Awareness Month. So this is a little preview for my future items. And then Trustee Crane, you had a comment or question?
A quick one. Did you know an increase in the rate of kids who may in that category of having to make up their post-high school, of June?
Dr. D'Agostino, or
due to
maybe Dr.
COVID.
Burmeister. So it's been an increase in the kids that are, we have kids who are away,
right,
of these kids who would meet this requirement.
Yeah, well, we've never done this before, so we've never collected data on it. We certainly know at the end of the year our graduation rates, but we all know that there are some students who are, coined a term from Trustee Anderson that I thought was very appropriate. I heard earlier this evening, COVID casualties, and we know that there are some potential COVID casualties related to learning loss, and that especially in the seniors who may have to be working and taking care of family members. As Dr. Jocham said, we just want to provide every opportunity possible for a student to obtain that diploma. I think in the interest of compassion and grace, that this is a good thing to do. There are some school districts that do this on an annual basis, Huntington Beach, for example. But right now, all we are proposing is to get people over the finish line, to adopt this, I think, compassionate and worthy board agenda item, much like we did with the reduction of credits to 220.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion.
I was going to do. I move that we temporarily waive board policy 61146.1. School graduation requirements to accommodate the senior summer graduate program to help our kids.
Second.
Moved by Dean Botoyer, seconded by Trustee Crane. Roll
No,
call.
Anderson.
Trustee Crane raised her hand. Okay, Trustee Anderson.
Spoke. Yes.
Roll vote.
Student member Elizabeth Lee Beebe,
Yes.
trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
trustee Barto. Yes. Trustee Matoya,
Yes.
trustee Anderson,
Yes.
trustee Crane,
Yes.
trustee Ursulou, trustee Whitehead.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 15C, discuss moving community input on non-dice items to earlier in the board meeting. Superintendent Lee.
Okay, so this item is a request to be placed on the agenda for discussion upon possible action. I'd like to make a few comments before this gets up for discussion by our trustees. So first of all, I just want to acknowledge that on our current agenda, we have three opportunities for members of the public to make comments. First, of course, is at the beginning when just prior to going into closed session items on those particular closed session items. Next, we have a section where members of the public comment on agendized item, everything that's on our agenda. And typically what we've been doing recently, which I think has worked really well, is those comments made at the time that agenda item comes up. So for example, tonight we have an item coming up, I think right after this, on transportation. So we've got comments, so we right at them. So it keeps the timing and the conversation other, and that's what we're doing. And then the third opportunity is for members of the public to make any comments they wish in purview in the business of a school board. Okay, so they can't talk about anything, but they can talk about things that are not agendized, that are within the jurisdiction and the purview of this board. So we currently have three opportunities. The other thing I want to acknowledge is that working with the board president and President Floor before you, President Yelsey, and I know when Dr. Navarro here was here, did the same. We're always mindful of what was on the agenda. At times when we had an agenda item where the room is packed, and we certainly want to make adjustments so that we can accommodate one of these high-profile items, high-end items, get that done, so we don't have a lot of people waiting. So I think we've always mindful of that and flexible with that. The thing I wanted to state as we approach discussion is that when we move something forward in the agenda, that means everything else behind it moves back. Okay, so always one of those things that you move somebody first, everything came first. So we need to recognize, move something forward, something else, or a lot of something else gets moved back. The other thing that, I know I've said this many times, but this board meeting is a board meeting that's held in public, but it's not a public meeting. It's a meeting for the board to conduct its business. And that's a very important concept, because everything on each agenda are critically important to the operations and the function of the district. And many of the items are based on timing. Okay, and so when we put something on the agenda, it's for a very important purpose, and it keeps the operations flow of the district moving. Very, very essential. The other thing that we do, and we were very careful of this, is to make sure that the people who need to be present when that item is heard is available at that time. So when we set the agenda, we can give people an estimate of approximately what time. Many times we have principals that are running the meeting. Many times they're presenting. We have business owners who might have an item that they're wanting to see if it's going to be approved or not. We have members of the public, of course. Sometimes we have attorneys that are tied to this. So there's a lot of work that goes on in making sure that the order of that is shared people. And then we can be mindful of everybody's time in terms of when the item will come up. The other thing is that in non-agendized items, this is the one unknown that we have prior to every board meeting. We don't know what topics are going to be coming up that might rise up. We don't know how many members of the public wishes to speak on it. We could have one topic, could have 10 different topics. That clearly is an unknown. And so by moving this forward, and there's one of these pros and cons, we move it forward, we could end up with talks that are not agendized, not necessarily critical to the operations of the board at the time, and everything else gets pushed back. So when we look at the order, and when we've had discussions past, it always has been weighing the fact that, should we move something forward? What are we going to delay? What are the operation business of the district we need to move forward with? We went to a SBA conference several years ago, and one of the sessions, and there were trustees, including myself, were at a session, and the person was talking about kind of a best practice. And the best practice was, the board needs to take care of the business on the agenda first. and then the non-agendized would come out. And we talked about that and how we incorporate that part. But there's a very important piece that I'm going to end with. It is no matter what we do on the agenda, the board always has within a review to adjust the order of the agenda at the time. Like I believe we've done in certain circumstances where, we have a large group, it's a non-agendized item, and we want to move it, the board can always make that adjustment. So in the end, staff's recommendation is that we keep the order same, but we just kind of restate the commitment and the fact that if you as a board want to move an item earlier, whether it's an agendized item or a non-agendized item, that you do so. Okay, that concludes my comments on this.
Thank you. Comments?
I think that it's reasonable that we move things around as they come up. What I'm trying to avoid, I think, when I consider moving a non-agendized item earlier is so often people will sit and, especially in COVID times, they'll sit and wait on this meeting, and understandably they'll mute themselves and take themselves off camera, and then they'll get caught up their lives because they can run this on the side to what they're doing, and then they don't have the opportunity to speak. And we've seen that happen so often that would be my consideration in moving non-agenda items earlier. That people would have idea about what time they should be waiting to speak. Now, usually I know the person who's going to be making a comment. I might suggest that they come on at about 8 o'clock because that's about it to non-agenda items. But I think if you don't know me personally, to give you that tip, that's a disadvantage. Somebody who would be willing to speak or is unaccustomed to speaking or is just really unfamiliar. So I think we're giving an opportunity to it's really an opportunity for those who would not really be part of this to contribute. And I think that's really important because, it is our meeting and we're doing that in public, but I see hear from the public. And if they're, they know me personally and they can ask, that's great. But if they don't, I might learn something new, and I'd like to know that before I go about my business. So that would be my consideration to moving it up at least while we're doing these remote meetings, because I back when we were in person, then we rarely had a show, and I see that so often, and it gets usually technical difficulties. It seems.
Anybody else have any comments? Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. Yes, I agree. With Trustee Barto, I think one of the things for me that I think of it differently than maybe that person who said that at a CSB event, they may not be a basic aid district. So for me, I think it's really important for Newport-Mesa as the largest basic aid district. We are directly funded by taxpayers. That taxpayers who keep our lights on and fund our schools have an opportunity to speak in our meetings. I actually pretty firmly disagree with we're just conducting meetings in public. It's my feeling that our clients essentially are the school community. Our clients are parents. Our clients are the community organizations that would like to speak. I was just looking even right now for an agenda item. We have 8 people that want to speak on buses, and I don't see any of them on right now, and that's an agenda item. So I'm really concerned that we are giving people enough time and the opportunity to make comments about something that's extremely important to their family, but cannot get through due to timing or difficulties. So I would like to move it to the beginning. I think it's much better for the community, particularly during this time when our meetings are closed.
Trustee Wagon.
It seems reasonable to want to, maybe if we could put a time limit, say if we move them up to the before our discussion action, if there's a time limit, if we know, hey, we can have this for 20 minutes of non-agendized items, so then that makes sense. That would be, we'd be able to schedule that into our agenda, knowing that we have principals and other members of the district that need to speak, because I do know that the non-agendized items, it is hard for people to wait that long, and then that just makes their concerns even greater or angrier as they wait. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing to consider is other governing bodies in our area do put non-agendized items up in the front before they go through their discussion action items. So, if someone's talking to a city council or planning commission or whatever, they take that up beforehand. And so they might be used to that type of cadence. That is not the same that it is used here.
And just point that needs to be noticed, if we move this up and gave it to 20 minutes for agendized items, we would have to give 20 minutes for every topic that's discussed. So if there are 3 topics that people want to talk about, we would give 20 minutes to each of those topics. You can't just do one and not the other, or just lump them together.
Is that in? Can we lump them together?
Yeah, if I may, let me clarify that. So in our board bylaws, it states that it can be a maximum of 20 minutes per topic. So in a non-agendized placeholder, you could have 3 different topics, and potentially you could limit the amount of time to 20 minutes each one of those topics, which would be 20 minutes, 20 minutes, and 20 minutes on the 3 topics. So that could be 60 minutes. So it's 20 minutes per topic, not just 20 minutes total.
I thought it was per topic on the agendized items.
Yeah, on any item, on any topic,
Then we
which
need
is
to
an
change
agenda
that.
item or something that comes up from the public, like as a non-agendized topic.
Would it be a good opportunity then for us to change that? So then it would be for non-agendized items, it would be 20 minutes max for any of those topics. Because that would be something that would be part of our board review to do. Correct?
I agree with Trustee Anderson that I personally, to coin a phrase, would like to change our bylaws before we changed what we did. Because I have no objection to 20 minutes of community comments earlier in the agenda. When we have an hour and 20 minutes, then our board business is taken care of when we're exhausted. And we do want to hear what we say, but it's time limited for altogether. So it's, I mean, people are nodding on that. And this is a discussion for today. So should we come back and look at our bylaws and probably then consider changing the bylaws? So if had just 20 minutes of comments, we could take them earlier in the. I would like us to do that, but I'd like us to do that in a time manner so the public realizes we're not just putting them off by saying, oh, we're going to do bylaws. We can put that on our next agenda. That's as timely as we can. Right. Sometimes we say we're going to discuss and think things. So I just. No, I think we can't do that tonight. No, we can't. So let's bring it back at the next meeting to look at the bylaws, possibly changing. And at the same time, if we do that, we can discuss this. I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
Any thumbs up? Yes.
I think the whole point is that we want to be able to.
We're going to the
schedule
old
our
fashioned
time.
with nodding heads and I have no control
Those
over
who can't see us at home. We're all nodding.
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving it up as well. And I looked at some of the neighboring districts and they run their meetings. And I do know that Irvine Unified has actually 2 places for non-agendized items for discussion at the beginning and at the end. And I know that the board president could certainly set a time limit as well if it's getting too lengthy. So
and as Superintendent Lee Sung already addressed, we have in the past taken some non-agendized items and moved them up. I can have one specifically that had to do with curriculum where we had a lot of speakers.
Oh, yeah.
And so we can do that.
Yeah, I'd just like to add that it sounds like a great plan to bring it to the next agenda and then use the bylaws to, because the norms are, I mean, I also, similar to Trustee Anderson, would disagree with that presentation that was given at CSB because it is a norm of good civic engagement to be consistent and have high levels of communication and letting public speak and address you on their non-agenda items front is good civic engagement norms. So I want to agree with whatever.
Trustee Ursulou, would you like to make a motion of what you would like to happen?
Yeah, so then I would make a motion that we, is it spend this item until next agenda? We also first vote on our bylaw change it to the 20 minutes at the beginning agenda for non-agenda items, and then also make this change at time.
Second.
Okay then.
Okay, we're having right here. Moved by Trustee Ursulou, seconded by Trustee Anderson. I heard that one. Roll call vote. Would you like to?
May I ask for just some clarification?
Yeah.
Trying to take notes. So with this motion of adjusting the bylaws to have non-agendized items at a maximum of 20 minutes.
Not per top, just maximum.
Yeah, per topic. Okay. So I just want to make sure we're all on the stage and thinking that through. Is we could have many community members come forward with many topics, and we could get to that cap pretty quickly. It happens to those individuals who exceed that 20 minutes, that they will not have the opportunity. So that's one opportunity.
They come to next meeting?
Or
We move to the end.
or we have a 20-minute session.
Right.
And some people aren't going to get to, we've had that before, or we say, you get 1 minute, or you 3 minutes, or you get 2 minutes. That's the president's discretion. If we have a cast of thousands. But if we're going to discuss this with board bylaws, that's what would go in bylaws. And I'm asking the edit committee, could we like meet together really quickly? Not right this second, but to help formulate that language.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify, and
That's what
you know,
I'm-
currently, board has the ability to be on the 20 minutes. You're saying to keep that aspect in.
Yes.
The board has discretion.
But we may choose to do 20 at the beginning and say, take an hour and a half at the end.
But just 20 at the beginning.
Okay, thank you for the.
I think
Okay.
the goal is to keep everyone timely. We want to keep these meetings timely, regardless of how many people come.
And we also want to allow time for people who were here speaking on agendized items to have that opportunity
Exactly.
and not wait
We don't
until
want
the
to
late
push them
night
to
too.
the end.
So,
Because that's what's happened. All of a sudden someone will say, I'm going to speak, but really what I want to talk about is item number 14G. And we're all going, huh? And so it's to keep our thoughts together also, to be the most
And-
effective can be.
And ultimately being open to the public as far as civic engagement and wanting to be a part of the process. And I think that's really important.
Trustee Ursulou?
And one addition, the norm in other districts seems to be 20 or 30, but it is capped and it is up front. So parents and community residents know that that's their shot.
Okay, roll.
Student member Elizabeth.
Yes.
Trustee Yelsey.
Yes.
Trustee Barto.
Yes.
Trustee Soye.
Yes.
Trustee Anderson.
Yes.
Trustee Crane. Yes. Trustee Ursulou. Yes. Trustee Wagon. Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone. 15, discuss the impact of COVID-19 on districts' transportation policies and practices. I know we have several people present here tonight, and I just want to say that Transportation Director Humphrey did a great job with the presentation. We got a preview of it, so we're all looking forward to it, and welcome tonight to be with us. He really appreciate it.
Okay, I'm going to start with some comments, and Shelley Humphreys, our Director of Transportation, is making her way to the podium, and Mr. Holcomb will be close by her side to answer your questions as well. But I should first echo You know, I've worked very closely with transportation directors in the past, but never in a pandemic crisis. Never having to ask them to do the impossible and not only do the impossible, but to do the impossible 3 or 4 times in a 12, 13-month period. So I truly respect Shelley Humphreys and the work she and her team have done in this pandemic. First of all, I want to say that we've had to make many difficult decisions throughout this crisis, COVID. Many difficult decisions. And one of them is transportation. That with the guidance and the fact that we have to space kids on the bus is one of those very difficult decisions that forced us to make to limit capacity in our, which meant that we could not transport all the students that we normally do. And this district, and you see in the presentation, has been very supportive of home to school transportation beyond mandated transportation for our special needs students. We're going to see with Shelley Humphreys' report. Probably going to learn more about transportation than you ever want to, but it's very important, we believe, to kind of go back and look at the laws and the mandates and the ed code, the industry standards in transportation, to kind of go back. So we all kind of have that as foundation as we have the discussion about potential increasing transportation. The other thing you're going to see is how we are aligned and compared to other districts. Which I think is important and something that we constantly do to see, are we in alignment? Are we ahead? Are we behind? That's important throughout this crisis. Not only in the COVID situation, but just normally, I believe you see, we are very supportive of transportation in our district. The other thing is as we start looking at this in terms of the need. And what we had to do was create a district standard. And you're going to see again details of how we came up with that. But it's very important that we have a district standard across the district. Something that in my role as superintendent that I look at is looking at this as always from a district-wide perspective. And I'm also looking at it not only short-term, but long-term as well. And going to be some, I think, very important pieces of information there. And I'll come back at the end of the presentation to make some additional comments along those lines. But I'm always looking at this from a district-wide and not only short-term, but long-term perspective. So with that, Shelley Humphreys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Hopefully I can answer some questions with transportation. I know it's been on everyone's mind. But thank you again for having me here. So I want to go legal statute, and what that says is basically by law, state of California and federal law, that kiddos with special needs have to be provided transportation and as a support service. Gen Ed transportation, state of California, is not mandated. It's up a board, it's up to a district whether they're going to offer that. We've been very lucky here in Newport-Mesa in the fact that we've been able to continue that. I looked back on year 2027. 27 years ago, we have about the same number of buses that we have today. So even though enrollment is down, we're still providing that excellent Gen Ed busing. So for those of you that have been in the district for a long time, know we've provided that. So the mode of transportation is defined in special code. And the interesting thing is these things can be used in an IEP team. They can suggest that the student is walking. We use a private car. We use a school bus. We utilize public transportation. Riding in a taxi cab. Some districts are using that. I know that a district in LA only use taxi cabs to transport kiddos with special needs. Here, what we do is we use a combination of things, but these are all considered as through the IEP. So what we do for industry standards and best practices is we mandatory busing, and of course that would be special ed IEP driven. Next, we look at foster youth. Kiddos have either moved out of the district and they're mandated to stay within the district. We will go ahead and pick them up, whether they're Mountain Valley or some other county. We do bring them back. Especially there's a court order or guardians want them in the same district. And again, then there's our McKinney-Vento population. We have a growing population of McKinney-Vento kiddos here in the district. We work very closely with the Welcome Center, make sure those kids are serviced. We do follow Gen Ed guidelines. They're still within that walking area. They wouldn't necessarily get busing. But right now we're transporting 50 McKinney-Ventos throughout the district. So we're proud. We have a great relationship with the Welcome Center. And we do try to get kids on the bus as quickly as possible. Okay. And then what we do is we had to look with COVID at what would be fair and consistent throughout the district. And we use, again, industry standards for busing for Gen Ed. And the first thing we consider is safety. So if a child needs to cross the street like MacArthur Boulevard or Jamboree or Peace Beach, would go kind of to the top of the list, right? Then we look at distance. Is it safe for us to be walking 5 miles to school? No, that doesn't seem safe. We look at the grades of the students. We do like to bus our pool kiddos, and we look at the walk zones, the shortest distance from students' home to their school. That is that they can get there safely. And then the availability busing, and that is where COVID came in, and we really had to look at what our district does compared to other districts. So in the state of California, Gen Ed is not required. It's up to a district to decide if that is something that's going to offer. But the general rule of thumb is they look at areas that are 2 miles or further from school before they'll consider it. They look at the absence of sidewalks, the quality or type of crossing. Is it a controlled intersection or stoplight or traffic controls, the speed of cars? There are railroad crossings. Are there a lack of crossing guards on these intersections? And of course, unsafe neighborhoods, which are hazardous to kids to walk by, areas that have liquor stores or other type of adult entertainment. So those are things that are considered when a school district looks at busing and where to put a place bus stop and if a bus stop is needed. So with the COVID, we had to dig deep and figure out how we were going to continue to serve as many kiddos as we could. As you know, at the beginning of the year, there were lots of ideas about who to bring back to school, when to bring them back to school. And that was a very constant fluid change to what we were dealing with. And through that, of course, we wanted to prioritize our kiddos with special needs, foster youth, McKinney-Vento. And then what we had to do is look at our walk zones because we knew we were very limited on seats on the bus. Originally, we were going to only be able to put 13 kiddos on a bus. Through cabinet, they decided to go ahead and put one child in each seat. They had to wear masks, and that's what we stuck with. So right now, on our large 40-foot buses, we do carry 26 students, 1 per seat. And therefore, we could only serve a portion of those students. Where it complicated was with the AM, PM cohorts, the AB cohorts, who was going, right? So that's what we had to work with. Then what we needed to do was we needed to analyze the stops and the walk zones. And so what we did was compared our current walk zones to those of the rest of the Orange County. The district I used to work for, Santa Ana, was a walking district. All of the kiddos walked there. They only offered special ed busing over there, with the exception of a few areas. One was a railroad crossing, and one was the kiddos that live over by Orange County Airport. So, but the rest of the district was all walking. So with the COVID, we could bus 1,378 kiddos per day. Now, that's if all the stars aligned and all the bell times worked and so on. So we looked and we did this comparison, and what we found was individually, we were offering a much lower or much more condensed zone where we would pick up kiddos. So out of 26 districts, 9 districts in Orange County do not even offer Gen Ed busing. Four of the districts offer very limited, and it's just based on safety. 13 of the districts offer limited gen ed busing based on distance. And so I broke it down. There's 3 districts that offer a mile or more, 3 districts that are 1.25 miles. That's where we fall right now. 3 districts are 1.5 mile, 1 district's 1 3/4 mile for elementary kiddos. For secondary, we had one school in the county that has 2 miles or more, 2 at 2.25, which is what we're using right now. 5 schools at 2.5 miles or more, and 2 schools at 3 miles or more. So through this, we came up with a very generous, I guess, alternative to trying to maximize who could get on the bus. Again, using safety as our first #1 guideline. So I just put a chart together so it was a little bit easier to read. I know Jeff Trader uses charts, so I thought I'd copy him. He's always got a flashy PowerPoint. So I like fact-based information. I don't like just kind of hear things and put it together. So what we did was, to analyze all of the stops, we got 5 very expert employees. Experts in the sense that they've worked for the district for a long time. They've known all of these routes. They knew how to analyze the speed of streets, where the kiddos were walking. And so we started analyzing all of the stops that could potentially be removed routing. The first thing what we looked at was safety and distance. We used routing software to compare where kiddos lived versus where their school was. We used physical inspections. I myself went out to many of the bus stops, drove the area. We wanted to make sure, okay, is this true? Is this going to be a safe walking area? And then what we did is we worked with the city. I did call the city. I had the present for the first week of school, especially for the kiddos that were now walking. We made sure that the crossing guards were in place. And I am still working with the city. There is one area I would like to see another crossing. So I'm working with Costa Mesa. And we used 1.25 miles as a baseline for elementary school, but I can assure you that there is no student walking 1.25 miles. That's just kind of our baseline that we used as a circle. And then recently I did a mid-year check-in with principals and community facilitators to see what kind of feedback they're getting. I really have not heard much, or their response to me was they have not heard my parents. It seems to be some teacher concerns, but really from the parents. So I thought that was interesting. And then at a prior board meeting, somebody mentioned that these little kiddos were walking 2.5 miles. So I want to assure you that is not the case. And here is a perfect example. This is a school that is now walking to school is just for 1/2 mile. It's 0.6 miles. It's a straight shot. There's 2 crossing guards. And that is the majority of where we used to pick up. And so they just walk straight down the street. So what we wanted to do, we had to make changes to get kiddos to school in a manner. Again, the biggest challenge was the large bus would hold 26 kiddos. The small buses are 4 to 6. So some of our special ed buses, we only have 3 students on because that's all based on wheelchairs and configurations of the bus that we could do. The AM, PM cohorts were a problem for us. We couldn't pick kids up and take other kids to school at the same time. And then the AB cohorts for secondary, it worked out nicely when they were going 2 days a week. And then I'm glad the kids are back in school, but it did present a problem for transportation. And so right now we're at capacity. We did have to stop bus pass sales. We have no more seats at the point. And then there's the unknown ridership. So people had bus passes that didn't actually ride the bus. So do we sell their seat again and then they show up is what we're finding happen. And then of course we've had some staffing issues, not staffing because they no longer work here, but staff because they may have been on extended COVID leave or some of the other things. And so that's how we came about having to reduce ridership. And then I wanted to go over the cost of busing. So part of, I know I've heard, I hear in my department, I just hire more people. So it does take 6 to hire a driver, train a driver, get them through all of the training. And that's a very modest time. Sometimes it takes longer than that, depending upon the employee. So the annual cost here in Newport-Mesa is $157,000 to have one bus on the road. That's all in. That's the expense to run the department. We have 54 routes, again, very similar to what we had 7 years ago, with an annual cost $8.55 million. We're unable to hire more or get more drivers. We have no more space to park the buses. We are pretty much maxed out in the transportation ability. And then again, with the extended time it takes to purchase a bus is 6 to 12 months, a cost of $2,000. We do replace them every 15 years. We have an annual bid of $1 million. And of course, the maintenance is ongoing. And that is it. So, questions, concerns?
I just wanted to comment when you were talking about drivers. We pay to train our drivers.
Yes, we do.
While drivers are being trained, they're getting paid, which is highly unusual.
Very unusual.
And also makes us very desirable because you say, oh, hey, I could do, it's a great job for students in my mind, because you can work in the morning and work in the afternoon and go to class in the middle of the day. But you're doing an amazing job of putting drivers in the seats of the bus. So, and you kept the buses going. We did have COVID issues, I'm sure. Some of your office staff who are bus drivers, former bus drivers, are there in the buses going, okay, well, we got to pick this up. So
thank you for saying that. It is Bus Driver Appreciation Day. So shout out to all of my employees and my amazing staff.
And thank you for your presentation. We may need to be back. We do have speakers that are waiting now.
Great.
So their comments and have discussion.
Thank you for your time.
Mrs. Ish, would you like to start calling up?
President Yelsey, there were 8 comment cards submitted. None of those 8 names are in our Zoom list of attendees.
None of them are on here?
Were they in the queue earlier?
No, I did. I checked the names when we first came on.
No.
There's one named John, but that's a, I don't know if that's
One of them is our John.
Right, under attendees, there's a John, so, it's not necessarily the person on it,
I
but
get
I
that.
should check.
Okay, so we do not.
Is there a way you can check when it just says John, who the John it is?
I can do that if not. All right. There's a comment card from John Levere. There is someone on the caller list just named John. I don't know if it's the correct John or not, but can you unmute and let us know who you are? John? Could you unmute your mic and let us know who you are? Okay, there was no response.
He just unmuted.
Ms. Fish, can you just look to see for people while we have a discussion on this item, and then we can always back to the comment.
I will, thank you.
So do I have any comments? Or are there questions for Shelley?
Yep.
Trustee Anderson?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I love it. So thorough and amazing. I was just wondering, I know there were some items that we're talking about, and it was the item that was on the agenda talked about forecasting for us being in full day on. I was just wondering what are some of the current considerations that we may be able to address. And one of the things that I was wondering is particularly, it sounded like basically we needed to have a hard and fast 6 feet, and that is longer the norm for our classrooms. And so I was wondering if 3 feet is happening in our classes, and then also if we could possibly have siblings sitting next to each other, if that would help expand the usership. So those are 2 initial questions that I have.
So first of all, the standard right now in our district is 1 passenger seat. So if you consider the distance between passengers now, they probably are at about 3 feet. Do you say that? Okay. And we know that other districts split their passengers out by 6 feet, which dropped the ride down to 13 per standard bus. We did not make that standard, and we were actually more aggressive in that, in order to make it worthwhile to run our buses and to get more kids to school. And that was a decision that made early on, and that's where we stand today. To go any further, in other words, to have more kids on the bus, we would putting two passengers on a seat. And no longer are we talking about feet or even 2 feet, and literally, what, 1 foot, inches maybe? Inches. And we're not there yet. And I don't believe any other district has taken that next step. Now, what will it look in the fall? I'm hoping that we can move closer and be in a distance that we are all comfortable with in terms of weighing the rest. So right now we're 1 per seat. Could that change in the fall? It may, but right now I'm not in a position to recommend or support anything less than one passenger seat.
Mr. Lee-Sung or Ms. Humphries, I thought we were already okaying if you're the same family, siblings will be in the same seat. And if I'm not, and we're doing it, don't anybody think I said.
Yeah. No,
I had heard of Trustee Montoya, that's why I asked.
yes, that in and of itself would have been fine. The challenge is that if you have 2 students in seat and you also have a student in the seat immediately behind them, then that student is no longer properly separated from the students in front. So we would have to have an empty. They can sit together if there's nobody else in the other seats on the bus, but you can't increase the count that way. Make sense?
Geometry thing, and it may be way, I'm not going to argue it out because my little brain is making a triangle going in, and if they're this one, I would think, but it's also, so my face to the back of someone's head is safer than my face to their, so. I thought it was a way to increase bus ridership. I'm not an expert in the field.
Trustee Crane.
Ms. Humphrey, that was an exception report. Thank you for all the legwork in your department, whoever contributed to this wonderful PowerPoint. And because I was a bit physical about our, whether we were serving our community in regards to its transportation needs. And this report, based on facts, shows me that not only are we meeting, we are actually exceeding the expectations. So, and it's based on facts and research, and it sounds like you got your team out there walking the walk and measuring, and so thank you for all the information. Very valuable.
Yeah, I along Trustee Crane's comment, I think that this shows us we should be proud of what we're doing. We're doing transportation because not all districts do this. We're required to do this. And you've given a lot of thought to the routes we go. We're not having children walk long distances to school. We have not heard that there are people not coming to school because of transportation, and we're taking care of additional needs of homeless. So I think you've done a really good job of covering all the bases, and that appreciated. Thank you. Trustee Ursulou.
Yes, ditto to everyone has said. This is such an exciting PowerPoint. Thank you. a big good PowerPoint points. Of the 54 routes that you mentioned, how many of those are the IEPs, the McKinney event plus foster youth? Like, I'm going to figure out how many of those 54 are the general ones.
That is a great question. So this district, thanks to Sarah Jockham's department, they do a good job, and we have integrated most of our special ed kiddos with ed, for the most part, unless they're wheelchair buses. So Kellbrook, as an example, has a lot of buses that are just meant for ed, but we do combine them as best we can. We have transitional bus stop here. We're really helpful for the kids because it helps them develop obviously lifelong skills. So right now we have 14 of the smaller buses, but we do not only just wheelchair, we do kind of have them mixed. So it depends on the school population and how many students are there.
Oh, okay. Is there? I think I'm trying to figure out. Are there certain schools that have more busing population than others?
Yes, absolutely. So Ensign would be one, Newport Harbor. Adams School has a lot of kiddos that ride the bus. Winkle's probably our most popular school for school busing. They typically have 13 buses when we can load them up. Right now they would need twice as many. And so with the expanded walk zones, we're right where we need to be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
If I could continue, so how many, it looked like, I was trying to bring up the report again. So there were 54.
Move your microphone, please.
I was trying to bring up the report again. There were 54 are operating now, correct? Or were there 50? Okay. So how many were there before COVID?
54. So we vary anywhere from 54 to 56. So because our buses are multi-tiered, so as an example, we'll drop all the kiddos off at elementary schools, and the same buses then go and they depart and they go pick up Winkle kiddos. So all of our bus routes are not just single school, they're multi-tiered, right? And so anytime there's a change in, say, a bell schedule as an example, it really impacts what happens next. We lost our flexibility in the morning because we're dropping kiddos off very close to bell time now because we're not serving breakfast. And so we used to have more flexibility in the morning to get where we're going, but the number of routes hasn't changed, right? But 27 years ago, we had only a few more routes. Today, we're serving an enrollment of less than what we had, I think 27 years ago. I think we're at 26,000, and now we're 18,000 with almost the same number of routes.
Yeah.
So again, different size buses. And again, keep in mind that a school that only serves 2 kiddos, maybe they're kiddos with special needs or they're kids that live 5 miles from the school, you still need one bus to serve those two kids.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, one of the things that I had heard particularly about Wilson was, for instance, they used to have 4 buses that came and now they only have 3. And the third one is split between multiple neighborhoods. And so there was some confusion, particularly initially. But I think one of the things that I have a concern about for Wilson in particular is the way that the current school boundary map is. The current school boundary is kids that could live at Harbor and Hamilton, literally go past Ray, past Pomona, and then go down Placentia to Wilson. And I actually had one student that I used to work with that she had, part of it was she was supposed to be taking a public bus at times, which was concerning to me. This was pre-COVID. And she was in 3rd grade. But I think one of the things that I think at another point would be great to reevaluate is if some of the school boundaries make sense anymore, because it, to me, doesn't make sense for somebody to travel by 2 elementary schools and then go to a 3rd that is a great distance further. And then I also just had some concerns as well, as I've seen some students get off the public bus and then walk to another bus that would maybe be a city bus near the corner of Harbor and Victoria. And there are multiple, I was telling this to Mr. Lee Sung because my heart drops every single time I see it. just a tragedy waiting to happen. And there'll be several homeless people that will be there. There will be a lot of adults, and there will be a very small child by themselves. And sometimes the parents are doing all that they can, but they may be working and not able to pick their kid up at the exact time that they need to. So I'm glad what you said, what you shared about there are no elementary students that are really walking probably the full 1.5 miles. And I think there are a lot of parts of West Side Costa Mesa that do have liquor stores on corners, and they would be considered unsafe, but we're not necessarily for some of this. So that's why I was trying to get a really accurate picture of where we were pre-COVID, during COVID, and then now that we are coming out of that, what that's like. Because I think too, comparing us in a lot of ways to other districts in Orange County, again, we're basic aid. It's a bit like apples and grapefruit. There's some districts that unfortunately cannot afford to do, and we're grateful that we're able to do it. But I just want to make sure that we're offering the same resources and accesses as we did before COVID. So thank you.
Great.
Okay.
May I answer? Okay, so great. I think you had some great points. I too think, again, that's not my wheelhouse of school boundaries, but I understand we do. There are kiddos that live right by Wilson that go to Apple, as an example. But again, that's not I'm in charge of boundaries. And in terms of the Victoria Crossing and Harbor, those kiddos actually go to Wilson, and we do a pickup right there. I know that you mentioned homeless folks. I have worked with 2 liaison officers that handle community involvement there in Costa Mesa. I've been out there as recently as today. I have driven down every single street. Costa Mesa does a fabulous job. I don't know, for those of you that work with the city of Costa Mesa, clearing those folks out. Even some of the churches that used to have them, they do not house them. If you drive through, and I'm happy to take anyone on a tour. If you guys want to jump on a bus, we have a great tour at Scott Parks. Yeah, and you can drive through the neighborhood. It is really a very safe area for kiddos to walk to school. So yes, once in a while, I mean, I live in sites, once in a while you'll get, somebody walking through. But again, been out there as recently as today, and I did not see any sign of homelessness. And the 2 officers, they said they do a great job of just trying to, move them along or find them support services.
I appreciate that. I just having our buses drop off at a public bus on a corner that across the street, there's a motel that there's been trafficking all the time. That corner right there is very dicey. So would it be possible, maybe another time, the conversation about even moving that down further? So if the drop off was maybe Maple, Victoria and Maple, and then it was in a neighborhood, I think we could get closer, sir.
Happy to look at that. Maybe if you can shoot an email to him and can look at it. And again, we're always open to meet with all of you guys as a group or individually. I am happy to talk to you. And if you want for individual stops,
We may want to take you out and taking us on a bus.
I think it would be really enlightening. It is great.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And we do have one speaker here.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We do have one speaker that Mrs. Fish can bring now, I believe.
Yes, we have one that's joined us. John Levere, you have 3 minutes. Please unmute yourself, state your name for the meeting record, and speaking.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is John Levere, and I'm at 1860 Anaheim Avenue. I'm actually a child care provider. Been there for 42 years. I heard tonight that you were talking about safety and walking, and I'm talking about Whittier School in particular. The walk on 18th Street or that side of town does go through industrial areas, and I did drive it also. I was behind the trash truck as the kids were getting out of school one day, and I just became a little scared. Those kids are walking down. It's not a neighborhood. It's an industrial way. That means there's companies and things operating. There's trucks coming in, people moving. And that's how, if I had my daughter walking, I would not let her walk down there. And not talking about Placentia crossing that. I think these elementary students walking through that, and like I said, is back to safety, because it's not a neighborhood that we think of. It's not, there's mom and dad, there's Joe and Bob that lives down the street. This is an industrial area. These are little kids that are walking, and yes, it's a straight line. I'm gonna give it to you there. It's a straight line, but to get to their neighborhood, it's scary. The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I know you mentioned that you haven't heard from parents. I provide childcare right now. It's full-time. We've been full-time doing the Zoom. Those parents would rather have their child in school, but because they work, they could not do the AM or the PM, because they couldn't go to work, get off after 2 hours and pick up their child and take them where they needed to be. These parents, and we've been getting calls every day because parents don't have the resources to take their child and leave them there after school and be able to pick them up by 3:30, 4 o'clock. So they have to find an alternative. I feel that the parents that are still on that distant learning are being penalized because they have to work. And I talked to all the parents, and I had meetings. I don't know where these groups are that meet, because I don't go around looking for them. I've been here for 42 years myself doing the same thing. These parents.
Your 3 minutes is up?
Oh, I didn't hear you.
Your 3 minutes is up.
Yes. In the Newport-Mesa Whittier School District area. These
Thank you.
parents.
There's a 3-minute limit, and you've reached your 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Thank you. President Yelsey, I have double the list, and there are no other speakers for this agenda item in the queue.
So are there any other comments before we move on?
I had one question, and I'm so thankful that really thorough, so I don't want to give you more work. So if you don't know the answer, you can just say you don't know. Well, no problem. I was curious about the ridership and the those who had buses and didn't end up using them, because I feel like there's a lot of factors. I hear people are saying that they can't get to school, and now that we have full day, that makes it a little bit different. I also wonder how, as myself, sometimes getting a kid to school any amount of time during this COVID time when with has been a challenge. So I'm just trying to weigh the wonderful job that we're able to do with the very, very real factors of parents and how it's less than perfect right now. But if did you know off the top of your head what the bus pass to non-usage ratio is?
Another great question. So now that we're back in session, actually, the ridership's increased. So the kiddos that weren't necessarily using the bus passes is now that their friends or siblings are going to school, the buses are full. So we have had to send overflow buses as an example to add them to overflow buses because the ridership, they had a high level of bus passes sold, but low ridership. And now that we're back in full session, they're all going. So I can't give percentage off the top of my head. I'm happy to look into it, send that on. But that was a great question. So and as another example, I know that one of the other trustees mentioned that there's attendance issues or could potentially be attendance issues. So again, I'm a driven person, like facts. I don't like, hey, my kid's not going to school. So as an example, one of the schools in question last week, on a Friday, only one of the students that missed school that day was a bus rider. So, and then when you look at that school on different days and you pull, I pulled all the way back to January, it only is about 5% of those students that were bus riders that are missing school. So again, it would, we'd have to really drill down on, individual students and what is going on with them. Again, you want to just say this, that I think it's a hard year to attendance based on COVID, because not only does the student not able to come to school with sniffles, they're out 10 days, right? And so we really have to wait, proper data, but just as a talking point, because I am always curious about that, like what is the effect of this? So one school in question, that is really the reality. It's about 5% of the kiddos that are missing were bus riders.
Thank you. Thank you. That's so all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
just
again.
One more, sorry. Thank you. That's that question. John's actually one of the first people who reached out to me, and several other people. And I know when this was an item on our agenda from previously, over 25 parents that made comments from from 3 different learning centers, but also the parents that attend Wilson and Whittier specifically. And so it's a bit challenging, because I say we had 7 other people that wanted to speak, and they were not able to for whatever reason. And so one of the things I just want to highlight is I think the corner that was brought, the street was actually brought up as the example for the bus mileage. I think if you're looking at it, because I brought it up again as well on just on the map, when you look at overview bird's eye view, yes, it looks like there's not a PCH, but on this corner for Placentia, where 18th Street and Placentia are, on this view provided, it has one car dealership, but also on the corner that's on the the northwest corner, there is a high-end dealer that has Lamborghinis and other things. So there are actually at least 2 that are on this corner that routinely their test drive route is to go down Placentia as fast as they can, come back up 18th, go down Monroe and make a square. So at the time, often you do, and kids are returning from going home from school. There also is almost like a known joke in the neighborhood across the street from that. There's an apartment building that constantly has a broken wall, because so many people run the light at Placentia, and so many people not only run the light, they hit this one spot on this apartment across the street. So I think when we're talking about safe routes to switch, again, I also am a data person, which is why I love your report, and I let me get real information. I think it would be great to walk with maybe some of the members of PTA from some of these schools, walk with some of the people who are dealing with this every day. I know we have one guard that's at Monrovia and 18th Street. I've actually seen her and talked with her. She in her late 80s. For the first six months that we were dealing with COVID, she would not stand up. One times when I would go by, she'd be sitting in her chair, and then children would walk, and she wouldn't stand up to help them.
Trustee Andren, I mean, we could discuss every street corner in the district. Everybody could have comments. If you have specific comments, could you connect them through Superintendent Sung and Ms. Holcomb, and they address, they can be evaluated.
I understand that, because I want to hear from several members of the public and bring up some of the points that they would have brought up. So thank you for very.
Okay, thank you very much. And Ms. Free, again, thank you on behalf of all of us for a very thorough report. Item 15E, amend, modify the purchasing power component that refers to consumer price index regarding the Indian debt fund from the Irvine Company. Superintendent Sung.
All right. I'm going to start by saying having money is a good thing. Okay. I think we all need to.
Do we take a quick recess?
5 minutes.
Pardon?
Does anyone else need a break? I just need I'll just take my break. Don't say anything important until I talk.
You're going to miss my money is a good thing speech. So we are pleased to bring this item forward again at a request of one of the trustees to talk about the Irvine Company grant, endowment grant. And we've talked about this several times over the past several months and the past few years. And we're gonna have Tim Holcomb and Jeff Trader provide information to you, as well as some potential options. We also have Mr. Covert here, who assists us with some of the background and the legal aspects of this particular endowment grant. But I do acknowledge that having some funds available for our use to benefit our district and our students is always a good thing. And as we approach this discussion, I think we just need to remind ourselves that having this funds is a good thing. And in here when we have some COVID funds coming, certainly I want to make sure that we keep our focus always when we're talking about money on the things that truly will benefit and support our kids. I have learned over the years that sometimes the biggest challenge is when you have additional money, you start to lose focus on what is the most important and the most impactful. In fact, it could be sometimes a distraction. And so I go back to the fact that having money is a good thing. We just need to keep it as a good and positive thing. So with that, I will ask Tim Holcomb and Jeff Rader to continue the presentation.
Mr. Trader is the expert in this area. He'll be up in one moment. The first thought I would give you is endowments are a wonderful idea, aren't they? Because the idea is to give a significant amount of money that then earns enough money over so that you can plan to do something you otherwise wouldn't do and always have the money to do it, because the earnings from that initial nest egg always can continue to fund that. Harvard University has billions of dollars in endowments. They fund professorships and those sorts of things. Endowments are a great thing. We have a challenge, and this board received its endowment many years ago, long before I was here in the 90s. And that endowment had that idea to it. One of the great challenges we have is the investment policies of the county treasurer and how we can invest our money. And so what the board did was looked at how would you can keep it adequately funded, and then you had the county treasurer's requirements with regard to interest earnings. And those two things haven't aligned well over many, many years. So that's in essence why we're here having this conversation tonight, is just to figure out, so what can we do? What types of things what was the board's policy at the time? What's the board's intent now with regard to this money, and what options are available according to the agreement in the endowment and according to law? Mr. Trader's here who can walk you through all of those things.
It's good to be with you tonight. I think, in order to really understand what's happened here, we have to get in the Wayback Machine and go way back to 1990 when the district entered into an agreement with Community Facilities District 90-1. And with that came a $5 million endowment. And then in 1999 came another $1 million with Community Facilities District 98-1. So this goes way back, and in that agreement, there's some restrictions that were placed on the use. First of all, there was a $6 million there that is to be there in perpetuity, and then the district could use the interest for certain things, but not for salaries and benefits of district administration. And when we can create a ongoing obligation that would be greater than interest earnings. And so those were kind of the restrictions that were placed on that. And then in 97, the board amended or gave direction to protect the purchasing power of the endowment. And so the board essentially gave direction saying that interest earnings need to exceed CPI or Consumer Price Index before you could use any of the money. So we have a hurdle. We have a Consumer Price Index hurdle we have to make before we can even use the money. And then also in 1997, the board defined what an educational enhancement is. And that's essentially anything that pertains, hold on here, any program activity which increases the educational opportunities for students above and beyond the board's adopted curriculum. And then January of 2009, there became Uniform Prudent Management of Institutional Funds Act, which plays into this a little bit. But because we had this hurdle, in 2004, we stopped using this endowment funding because it became very clear that this was, we were in a period of low interest rates. And so we were never going to make the hurdle. And it was consistent. And so we stopped expending from that to honor the board's direction. So we find ourselves here today with some options that you have if you want to consider 4 options available to you. And we'd like a discussion about those. So first of all, the first option is that we continue with the direction provided in 1997 about protecting the purchasing power of the endowment and keeping the consumer price index hurdle, so to speak. And the second option would be to create a new calculation method utilizing all of the past interest earnings and spending 7% of those accumulated earnings with that, but maintaining the 6 million. And the third option would be adopting a calculation method to spend all of the available earnings up to 7%, and then take a percentage of that. So, and then the option forward would be explore legal options to spend an amount of 7% plus the $6 million principal, but that would require some legal work in that regard.
Okay, do I have questions? Okay, start with Trustee Barto.
So I looked at the amount available for spending between 2 and 3. That's kind of where I end up. My confusion with the is it's great because it seems to give us a bit more extra money. And however, how does that account the 6 million that remain? Are we just waiving that requirement or voting to waive that requirement? Because 2 maintains the principal at 6 million and allows us to spend the earnings. How is 3? How's different?
So 3 caps us. Takes so for example, we calculate what 7% would be, and then by a certain percentage which you would pick, we would discount that. So for example, if 7% of those earnings would equal 400,000, and then what option B does is say we're going to take a portion of that. So let's say you choose 50%, and the available that you could the 7%. If the 7% calculates 400,000, then you take half of that, then you would be able to have 200,000. So you're essentially governing how much of that 7% you can take.
Got it. So we come up with $400,000. Option 2, we could spend so I think I got them confused. With option 2, we could spend the $400,000. Option 3, we're saying we'll only spend half of that. So, thank you.
But you can pick whatever percentage you want. I
Yes.
picked the number. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh, no, business people first, because they answer my questions.
The one thing I'm noticing on your scenarios here, you've got in scenario 3, option 3, is that as I'm looking at it, it seems protect the endowment as you get towards year 5, right? After you start this process, you get to year 5, and the first 4 years looks like you're spent down some of your earned endowment balance, right? By year 5, you're bringing it back in. Which, and then if I look at the available funds that you're going to say set 50%, you're consistent spending around $218,000, which is really useful for budgeting purposes. You have that same amount you can spend every year, and we know we could even tag something that we can spend that amount on annually and continue through perpetuity if we want to. And to the fact that the endowment balance, well, from this, say, just this scenario grows by say $10,000 a year. And that's great because while we are flush with cash now and we've got a great, property value is really high. What about 15 years from now, 20, California just lost a criminal seat, so as the population begins, who knows what's going to go on with their values. So this is where what I was looking at option 3 really protects our endowment and allows us to spend it and allows us to maybe spend it on something that's, an expenditure we can for easily throughout the year, rest of the endowment or throughout the years. So that's how I did it, how I liked option 3, because we were able to use it and we were able to budget it equally and protect the endowment and keep it growing.
Trustee Crane?
Yeah, Mr. Tracer, on that third option, let's say we decide on a 25% or 50%, and is this something we reevaluate every year, or is that, again, in perpetuity, or can we change it as we see fit?
So we would take the board direction on this. However, it would be difficult to logistically to maneuver around on a frequent basis.
Right.
But it doesn't mean that you could change it. We would certainly take your direction.
Yeah, okay, so what basically my question is we wouldn't do that here because, again, to sustain a plan if we're choosing something that we want to spend it on, but isn't out, we need to adjust given the economic times.
Yes.
So there's an out, all right.
But it would still be nice, but we can't touch the principal.
Yeah, no, option
okay.
3, I think, protects.
Can you clarify? I mean, so this isn't necessarily a year 1 to 5 model. This is what you're. I mean, I think that's what some of the difference for me is. That's going back to 2016, but it isn't necessarily being used. It's not necessarily an approximation of here's what a 5-year plan of this would be. I think for me, one of the items that I think is interesting is the initial intent of this was that it would be 1-year program. So that was one of the reasons why they didn't stipulate that it was for implement. It wasn't for certain items. It was every year would be reevaluated. It wasn't for ongoing things. I think that's something to consider. I'm really excited that we are finally looking at this. As you know, I mean, this is something before I won the board that I had a lot of questions. I discovered at one point for educational assessments and for that exact definition, some of our schools really would benefit from it, especially our schools that do not have foundations, because some of the items that foundations cover, but then also it's an opportunity for foundations to maybe be able to fund others, and these are things that the district could cover. So for me, I thank you too for explaining about the 50%, because to me that seemed a number that would be adjustable, that we could decide to do 75, 25. That 50% is not essential. For me, I lean more towards option 2 because we have not used this money in a really long time, and I think the opportunity to use more money up front for some of these particular things that may not be covered by COVID. I think this is a great opportunity for something like if we need to enhance elementary tutoring, if we need to figure out, one of the items in the past that was used for school telecommunications. Maybe this is an opportunity to use money for, extra cameras in class for kids to do rural education that way. And so I want to also though ask, because it seemed to me part of this act that came to being in 2009. It's fortunate that the district did not change its policy. To me, the language that I read is that it is a mandate that we have to use the endowment. Could you clarify that as it relates to that we need to use the endowment?
I can talk to we're simply following policy. I don't know if Mr. Covert wants to add anything to the act off, but we're simply following board policy in that regard.
Okay.
The direction of the board.
Okay.
You just have an
Mr. Cove coming up.
Good evening, member of the board. Yes, this is an exciting item. I wanted to let you know that my partner represented the Newport-Mesa School District in those negotiations with the Irving Company for the CFD. So we've had a lot of files and a lot of discussion over the years on the item. Looking at the act, we have to also recognize donor intent, meaning what the Irvine Company intent, which is like preservation of principle. And we have to ask ourselves, what about our investments? The act deals in prudent investments, but as you know, your general fund is deposited in the county treasury. And therefore, investment policy, we don't have to worry about, we don't have any say over it unless we permission from the treasurer to move the money. And it's long been the position of county treasurers as a result of county bankruptcy. They were not going to allow local public agencies to put their money outside of the treasury. So with that in mind, then you have a requirement of prudence and how you expend. So when I discussed the matter with the superintendent, Mr. Holcomb, with Mr. Rader, we thought it'd be good to show a couple of different examples for as to what you had available to spend. And then Mr. Rader, of course, said something important, which is the concept of what are we going to rely upon so they know what we can budget and expend for enhancements. Enhancements is used, by the way, in the two donations as to what apply to. So there's a little clarification from that that's been adopted by the board. So you can look at your ongoing policies that you were funding, we were enhancing things we had to do, and also a limitation, as you will realize, not encumbering future interests. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any other questions you all may have.
You mentioned something about encumbering your interest. Can you explain what that means?
That's in the grant as well, that you cannot over encumber future interests to exceed interest earned. That's a stipulation for donor in order to, of course, protect your principal.
What are the requirements, legal ramifications, et cetera, if we want to put together some kind of oversight committee list going forward with various.
You have a board policy on committees, and then you look at your board policy on committees and think about that. You'd have to, I think, want to clarify. We know we're not having a board policy on investments. That's in the hands of the treasurer.
Right.
Then you would look at expenditures, how you could, think about what was deserving, and that's why your agenda backup listed for you all what those expenditures were over those period of years.
Are you talking about
We didn't have
an oversight committee to or how we would use the funds?
Yes. Yeah, something like the Citizens Oversight Committee that we have for bond, maybe not necessarily that, but planning something as we plan the longevity of the gift.
Because today, as today, just to be clear, we're just deciding on amending or modifying the plan, not how any money we then have will be used.
Correct. I wanted to make sure that if we should decide to amend the plan, that there wouldn't be anything that would preclude us from discussing a committee at a later.
Yeah, I think for me, to follow up on that, one of the things that was really clear to hear about the 50%, because again, I think that's something where I would love to see more of the numbers. So what does it look like if we are using 25%? What does that look like? 75? I think the way that we received it, it's hard to fast. And I think this is something, once we change it, we're gonna likely want to go back and change it. I think we're gonna make some adjustments to how we decide to allocate the money. But I think we'd likely stick on how much is utilized. So I think that's one thing that I would like to have more information. And then I think one of the things that I had asked too is just how some of those decisions were made in the past. The only thing that I've seen is from 1997 and an old Xerox paper that showed here are some of the items that we use. I don't know how all those are decided. I don't know that last year in 2004, who made those decisions, where it went. I think there's like some kind of background history that I think I would like to know. Just if there was one thing that was used for eight years and that was successful, or we just are kind of shooting blind a little bit. There's items that are on the budget that every year comes up, but I think too I would also like to know a bit more how it impacts. I think the first year that I saw it on the budget and noticed was 2013, and it just had Fund 17, and it just had a very simple item, and through the past few years, it's gotten more complex. So now it shows risk management in there. Now it shows some of those other funds, whereas before, so now there's three. We're able to see there's three different allocations in there. Whereas in the past, it just said Fund 17, and it looks like it was just the endowment. And so I think those are also considerations that we need to make. I don't know that we have that information. Like, I've been studying this for a while. I don't know that our new trustees know all that.
From someone who was at least working in the district long ago. It was created to enhance when we were stuck with what we had to spend. It was spent, a lot of it was spent we spent it on the arts for a little bit for one
From
time.
2000, we have here where it was spent 2000 to 2004.
And that's pretty much where we were spending it, was from 2000. It was created in 1997.
And we have that information, so.
But for tonight's sake, though, aren't we just discussing
whether we should
amending our
spend
model?
Exactly, so we're
Because
just.
it's not the how, it's not the what exactly, not the we. It's more like, are we going to change how we're going to be spending this? So that's kind of, because that's later this discussion, I think. That's
on what we're going to spend it on, yeah.
But tonight, though, we're trying to decide which option.
A question, if we were to adopt option 3, and we're talking about, say, it's 50%, would we have to determine that percentage now, or can we look at that later?
Be the model.
I need so much more information before I.
need more
decide.
information.
So,
Be the model.
if I may, so this, first of all, this is good discussion, okay? And, Mr. Trader has provided just kind of some ideas. And certainly, I think he said it before, this board can determine at what percentage it wants to spend. Keep in mind that the more we spend upfront, the less interest this will earn in the future, thus kind of pulling back on the endowment concept, okay? The less we spend, the more we can spread that out. So again, then this is something the board will have to discuss and decide. What we pictured in our discussion as we're planning for this item is to get action from the board, and then we could come back at a subsequent with a draft policy, something written with hypothetical numbers associated with that, and see how it feels. And it's, gosh, that's too much, that's too little, doesn't give enough down the road. We want to think a little more long-term, less short. We can prepare that for the next meeting. But discussion that what we're having right now is important. And ultimately, we just have some direction of what we can bring back at the next board meeting, more detail.
So we don't necessarily have to decide between option 2 and 3 or what percent right now. We're more just saying that this is generally good. We like this idea. Come back to us with some options of how it would be useful and what the dollars look like over time, and we can have further discussion. Is that what we're deciding? Okay.
Or
First,
could
I
it
like
be-
the, I like
could
the
it
idea.
be we want to protect the integrity of the fund, so we want to, aside of being more conservative, come back in with options on that?
Yes, I think, and I was trying to think of a good metaphor for this. So say, for example, if the total amount of money, we'll just say, could buy on average, the average cost of a book, 100 books for every school for right now with the amount of money that's there. That, because of the purchasing power reduction, over time, that will reduce. It will never be able to stay at that level. If you look at these numbers, you can see that it continues to reduce. So over time, it will reduce. So the question really for you to consider is, how long do you want this to last? You can run it out, basically fairly quickly. You can route over a really, really, really long time by limiting, in essence, those numbers of books so that it lasts longer with this earning. Or where we've been is because of the policy that said we were going to try to keep, that it just doesn't work, we end up sitting all the money. And so the idea is, how do you want to spend, how quickly do you want to spend the money and basically run out of purchasing power?
And so I'm looking, as I'm looking at option three, for instance, I'm saying, you know, and I'm assuming that after year 5, it continues on growing as that. So as I'm thinking of how do we amend maybe what we vote on it say, you know, say 50%, it's not that number of that 7% that we end up spending. Say it's, you know, not two, that our endowment balance does not start going negative, continues to grow and not go negative. Are you guys following me?
But
How?
purchasing power wise.
But purchasing power. So yes. So my purchasing power of 216 obviously decreases as the things go on.
For example,
Inflation
books
and
get
whatever.
more expensive every year.
Right. So if
it's
we
the
can
same-
maybe add and then figure out if we can add sort of an inflationary number to that.
CPI.
Does that not make it too confusing?
That's where you are right now.
That's a
why you
CPI.
can't-
Well, but we haven't, we need to do
Right,
something so
but-
we can actually use the
But
money.
we would not be able to spend it though, because, you know, so say you take this percent, I mean, we could all calculate it. I don't want to get into
But
the
we
weeds,
could ask them
just
to
saying.
look at options how we could spend some money, but still maintain the
Yes.
integrity
Right,
Right.
yes.
of
Endowment.
of the fund.
Right. I don't think it's anyone's intention to deplete the endowment. I'm not hearing that. I think everyone wants it to go in perpetuity. I think that to have some more conversation around what that number what the utilization number looks like, but also some projections. So we have a better understanding and we come into a decision. So like for me, I would like to postpone or continue this to our next board meeting so we can have more information, because I'm not necessarily sold on either option right now. I think for me particularly, like I would like to use some upfront, but I also think we need to be conservative in some ways. So I'm not necessarily sure that I like either option B 2, 3 at this moment.
But we don't have to pick between, we don't have to pick an option, right?
You don't have to pick an option here, but to me, this is, I know we've talked about this and everything, is really important. I want to try to be clear that purchasing power is the issue. Look at your homes. If you look back 10 years, 15 years ago and said, I have that much money in the bank, I still have that much money in the bank, can't buy a home for that much money. You didn't lose money. In fact, even it went up. But if you were at 1% interest rate and home value going up at 8% average rate,
I'll never buy a house.
you can't buy the same home. So it's really the issue here is that consumer price index, the average price of goods, all goods, gasoline, everything, is higher than our interest rate with the county. So naturally, you always be reducing your purchasing power. Once you start some money, you will run out of money if you keep buying the same number of things, because the interest rate, the inflation rate of goods is higher than the return on the investment in your account.
Unless long-term interest rates go up.
I was going to say, interest
That's
rates, if they're heading up, then exceed CPI.
They don't seem to be doing
From a
that.
0.5% to 0.75%.
So
It hasn't been a lot of experience of the
Right.
county treasurer to get earnings significantly greater than the CPI.
Well, I have a request. Thank you. We see something similar to what you have here, but instead of like the last 5 years, are projected for the next 5 years with with maybe 2 or 3 options. But I'm thinking the 50% option, the one that gives us the least amount of waiver room. But then what it would look like if we took chunk out at the beginning and then did 50%, what if we all did the 50, but do it and we know it's projected. I don't think anyone on this board will hold you to those numbers next year if, everything falls apart. But that way we'll get an idea what we're doing to future boards and to PP's position. We're great for our background, but I need to go out.
Yeah, I think the goal is to use some of this and then not just let it sit and not, I mean, it's that it's protected. I totally understand the math, how we can't just say, we'll do 30% and, you know, in 10 years, we're you know, that's not going to work. And I feel like I'm asking you to write a new form of economics, but the way California is, it's like consumer price and all the crazy things we've seen with the COLA, and that's what that's looked like in California compared to the rest of the country. That said, I think we do spend some of this money, and I think for me, and I'm happy to adopt this resolution as long as I don't have to pick what route we're going. So I think we're saying we'd love to amend it, come back with a way that makes sense over the long term. And I'd love to know, you guys, Superintendent, you had said that there's some things that, as a cabinet had gone, hey, that'd be really great if we could have those things. I'd like to know what they are and know what the price tag associated is. So it comes back that we want to spend $150,000 a year for this really great program we heard of. That makes it worth it to me to spend that over 6 years or 7 years and then put a hold on it or whatever we want to do. But I think knowing maybe what we want to spend it on and what that like in the long term is something that needs to be done, even though we want to protect that for as long as possible.
I think too, if we can have the exact language, so the things that part of the protecting the integrity of endowment said was A, that it's only the interest, it's not the principal, and B, that it's for one annual year. If there was something that was ongoing, every year it would have to be approved, but the goal is more for short-term, 1-year things. I don't believe that the newer trustees have gotten the initial Irvine Company endowment which even is. So I think that's part of the thing that we would need to make a next step to send.
So there have been a lot of comments. Superintendent Sung, I suggest we go back. You go back with Mr. Holcomb, Mr. Trader, and look at going forward. What some options that we could look at? But we're not amending or modifying it tonight.
We don't have to take action tonight. We just want to keep moving forward with this discussion, and I think some interests that have been expressed by several of our trustees. We can put something together, again, with options, with some maybe projected numbers, I understand, moving forward, that we can look at and we can kind of see how that goes. And again, I know that we're all struggling with do spend more now, spend less now, more for later, that type of thing. Maybe we can see a couple of scenarios and get a sense of that, and then find a place. And then we can, I maybe talk a little more clearer about we like that, or that's a little bit too much, or a little bit too little, and then we can consider taking action next time. Okay. And then again, I think we need to wait on talking about the what.
I know. Right. It's easy to want to shop.
Because the amount of money that we have each year will determine what the what is, what's possible, what's not possible.
I think what for me is just to all have those 3 broken down areas of what Fund 17 includes. I think that's useful for the next conversation that we have too.
What do you mean? It's the definition of enhancement?
No, so just Fund 17 all is not just the Irvine Company. There are other components in that, which is why I brought it up, because I think it's relevant. So I thank you. That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we'll
discussion.
Okay. Mr. Trader, any clarifying question before we move on to the next item? Okay.
All right, thank you
so
Good
much.
discussion. Thank you. Okay, we now move to our resolutions. We will take them one at a time. 16A, adopt resolution number 210421, recognizing May 12th, 2021 as National School Nurse Day. And Dr. Jocham, you can sit here for several, but we are going to talk about them one at a time.
Thank you. It's a different topic. When you guys move from one end of the spectrum to the other. So this one is a feel-good item, and it's the resolution that we typically do on an annual basis to recognize our school nurses on National School Day on May the 12th. And you do have a resolution in front of you asking for approval. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of the the resolution this year for our nurses. And one of them is whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has emphasized the essential role school nurses play in health and academic success. And I think we've definitely seen that this year, and then the role of our school nurses in dealing with COVID and all aspects of COVID-19 at those sites. And we know that school nurses act to improve student health by promoting wellness and improving health outcomes. They address home and community factors, and they understand the link between health and learning. And I think that's really critical in this district. It's been a hallmark of Newport-Mesa for many years that the district really supports and values the role of health services, the nurses, the health assistants, and the clinic. So this resolution just really celebrates and acknowledges the accomplishment of school nurses, their efforts and the needs of today's students by improving the delivery of health care in our schools, and appreciate school nurses who contribute to our local communities by helping students stay healthy in school and ready to learn, not just on this National School Nurse Day, but every opportunity throughout the year. And I think that's really critical.
Thank you. Boy, have we needed them this year.
Exactly.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by trustee Crane, seconded by trustee Metoyer. Roll call vote?
Trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
trustee Barto,
Yes, yes.
trustee Metoyer,
Yes.
trustee Anderson,
Yes.
trustee Kuhn,
Yes.
trustee Ursulou,
Yes.
trustee Aiken.
Yes.
And now you can stay up here and model as we go to 16B, approve resolution 304-421, affirming May 21st as National Mental Health Awareness Month for NMUSD.
Yes, thank you. And this item I did bring show and tell to this evening. It is a new shirt we are promoting in the district, and it really lets us know that mental health matters, and it's something that in this district we know that's an important aspect for our students, our families, and for our staff members to work on that. And I think that, again, this is another area that Newport-Mesa has really shown so much improvement and leadership in the county and this state in this area of supporting mental health and then the role that we're doing within student support services. And just a couple of the highlights from this resolution is, whereas children today face complex social, emotional, and behavioral conditions requiring intervention, care, support in school, and these conditions have been exacerbated by the coronavirus pandemic. We know that, and then whereas the need for additional resources and supports has led the creation of the care and support line, home visits, welfare checks, meal provisions, and linkages to community partners for students and families. And we also know that our staff provide a critical role, and not just teachers, but it's teachers, psychologists, social workers, behavior specialists, school counselors, nurses, site administrators, all of our classified staff. Often it's one staff member that connects a student, and it's often the teacher, but sometimes it's the custodian, and it's the person in the library, it's the person, it's the bus driver, it's how the bus driver says good morning to people. So therefore we want to honor the contributions of all of our district leaders who contribute to the mental health and wellness of all students in the Newport-Mesa Unified School District. And just in terms of upcoming things, there will be another opportunity to purchase these shirts. If you missed your opportunity, I will send out more information tomorrow about how to access those. We also, on Saturday, May the 8th, is when we are having a virtual 5K. I thought that meant I really didn't have to run, but apparently have to run on your own. And then there's also, when you register for that, there's a fantastic opportunity between 10 and 3 to have breakout sessions for members of our community. There's stuff for kids, there's yoga for kids, there's different things. There's about anxiety and coping, and there's just a ton of different options for families to look at, to really celebrate and do something for our mental health. So I thank you for the time this evening, and I would ask approval of this resolution.
Thank you. And if you could send that information out to us again, because we get so much, for me, it got lost in the shuffle, and I would
It's
like.
because how good it looks.
And it does. Your shirt looks amazing.
I think there was there's a Zumba class I signed up for.
So yeah,
I've never done Zumba, so I'm excited.
We'll get you on video, Trustee.
Yeah,
King.
you're right.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
Second.
Okay.
Oh, well.
Moved by Trustee Barto, seconded by Trustee Crane. She was louder that time. Roll call vote.
Trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
Trustee Barto,
Yes.
Trustee Matoye,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Ursulou,
Yes.
Trustee Weigand.
Yes.
And I just want to say again, we do have incredible mental health support and people in our district who are delivering that. And with that, I also want to say that we need to continue to do a great job of communicating to our public that we have these resources, because
So I have heard that feedback, and we're going to be working with our site principals. We know that at times it means more to parents or things that come from the site versus coming from the central district. So we're working with them on that.
Okay.
And with that, I will have no informed report tonight, since you all have seen me up here enough, but thank you.
Thank you, thank you. 16C, authorization join the Education Technology Joint Powers Authority, EdTech IPA, and adoption of Resolution 2204-2021, approving the JPA membership agreement. Mr. Holcomb?
Thank you, President Yelsey. This item is here to allow us to participate in purchasing technology items that otherwise are not available on a bulk purchasing agreement. So you know that we use bulk purchasing piggyback agreements for different types of items. Since technology tends to change so quickly, those items are not necessarily available on the California GSA schedule or the federal GSA schedules, those types of things that we often use for piggyback contract. So Irvine Unified formed this JPA with some other local districts. They have suggested might like to join, and we think that it's a very, very good opportunity for our district to be able to purchase technology efficiently through this JPA. So we recommend approval of this resolution and joining the JPA.
And it always seems to work better when we join together with other groups.
Yes.
I have a motion.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Trustee Ursulou, seconded by Trustee Weigand. Roll call vote.
Trustee Yelsey,
Yes.
Trustee Barto,
Yes.
Trustee Matoye,
Yes.
Trustee Anderson,
Yes.
Trustee Green,
Yes.
Trustee Ursulou,
Yes.
Trustee Weigand.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 17, community input on non-agendized items. We do have one item, so Trustee.
So I speak. Speakers wishing to address the board on non-agenda items have submitted the appropriate comment card on the district website by later than 11 a.m. today, Tuesday, April 21st, 2001. Comments on non-agenda items are limited 3 minutes per comment, up to 20 minutes per topic. A speaker may not relinquish his or her time to another person.
Mrs. Fish, would you call up the speaker, please?
Yes. Excuse me, Bobby Grizzle, you have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name for the meeting record and begin speaking.
Yes, my name is Bobby Grizzle, the Regional Sales Manager for Office Solutions. Good evening, Superintendent Lee Sung, President Yelsey, and board members. I want to thank you for pulling item 14A7, the approval award of bid number 118-21, office and school supplies and equipment to Southwest School. I know this is not the time to discuss our protest letter that I submitted to the board, but I am hoping that someone from your district can contact me so we can discuss it further. We still believe that Office Solutions is the only responsive bidder and would like to take the time to explain why we feel this way. I want to thank you again for taking the time to read my email, taking the time to pull the item, and I hope that all of you have a good evening and take care and stay safe.
Thank you. President Yelsey.
Thank you very much. I think that's the only comment, right? Correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll go to informal reports. Superintendent Lee-Sung.
Okay. I want to actually give a report on behalf of Lynn Olson, our Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, who could not be with us in person today. And even though it's her report, I echo every word I say. Okay. And it has to do with the fact that earlier in the under consent, we had 3 MOUs that we had reached with NMFT, all related to reopening at some level. And I'm going to take this opportunity on her behalf as well as my behalf. We really appreciate the work of both negotiations from NMFT as well as our district. And I understand that role, being HR for so many years, that is very difficult, detailed work that they did on behalf of the district. So I want to thank you to the NMFT negotiator, Liz Dix, President Tamara Fairbanks, and all the members of the NMFT team, as well as Donna Olson and all the members of our team as well. They worked long hours, late into the night on many occasions, including these that were just approved by the board tonight. We really appreciate that. And I believe by having these MOUs in place as we open elementary last week and secondary this week, it definitely gives our employees, parents, our community, the message we're working all together for our students in this community. So kudos and thank you to teams coming together, reaching these mutual agreements on behalf of the district. That's Olson's message as well as I echo every single word.
Thank you. And I think on behalf of all of us, that's a great message. Mr. Drake.
I will just echo quite a few sentiments in the community and from all of you in relation to the incredible work our principals, teachers, support staff have done to bring kids back full time. You know, time as Superintendent Lee talked about that we're closing schools and opening school at the same time. It couldn't be more hectic, and our principals and staff, you know, both classified and certificated, just stepped into the challenge. And I had opportunity to spend time with Stacy Boom over at Adams on their first full day back, and it was like it had been all year long. So just to everybody, and thank you also for your support with that.
Thank you. I will pass by Dr. Jockum. She sits there and models her outfit. Mr. Trader? No report. Dr. Baxter? Mr. Holcomb? Heard enough? Okay. You hear a lot from everyone tonight. Board member reports.
I actually.
Steve White.
Thank you. It's not long, relax.
I know. I knew you were chomping at the bit to go.
I was, because it was very exciting that we're getting back to things. So that also means starting to go to our committee meetings more often, and it's exciting. But as the CSBA rep, the CIF, I was pleased to be able to move, and it was subsequently passed that competitive chair can waive the CIF ban on Sunday activities one time, once a year, because the national championships take place usually on Saturdays, Sundays. And so it was exciting for us because Costa Mesa High School cheer department won the 2021 varsity co-ed on tumbling national championship for the third time in a row. And that's really exciting because really and honestly, to have CIF recognition that this is the ultimate national championship for the sport. And cheer is now a recognized CIF sport. So congratulations to the Costa Mesa Mustang cheer team. And the other good news is that we're out and about and everybody else can do that too. So I wanted to make sure that was said. Thank you.
Any other comments, board member, other than trustee Bart?
I have my committee report. I can do that later. I just wanted to say that it was, thank you so much to all the staff and teachers and administrators. It's exciting to see all the kids back. It was wonderful to go to Newport Harbor High School and talk with a bunch of teachers and crash the PTA lunch and just get to hear where teachers were coming from and what they were excited about and what they were looking forward to. And it was heartwarming. So that was a really big highlight of. Did you want me to do my committee reports as now?
If you want, do you want to do that report now?
I can.
Okay.
So for Coastline ROP, I'm excited to know that one of our student board members is in the nursing program. She can't be here tonight because she had to be at her nursing class. And I said, please go to your nurse class, which was great. But for one of the programs that they have is the Medical Innovation Research Entrepreneurship Program, and they work with ICI, and there's an opportunity to be part of that as a lab partner. It's about $2,000 to participate. So it was very exciting that Coast ROP's team won the scholarship at grand prize. So all of those students will be going on to work with Chalk and CI to further develop their innovation, was something called Pocket. It's exciting to see that when the grand prize winner is from our students from our district and from Coastal. And I will let others who attended the DLAC meeting give the DLAC report.
Thank you. Trustee Ursuela?
Sure. Myself and Trustee Barto and Trustee Anderson, I believe we were all at DLAC this month. And it was really great to hear the presentation on all the great services, especially the mental health services Dr. Jocum's team provides to the district. So it was great that the parents got to hear all of those updates and how to access those resources in Spanish. It was a very useful meeting, I think. Trustee Anderson, if you want to it.
Yeah, this is the first time too that I think there's been a lot of talk and planning for a few years about doing a resource fair. So it's unfortunate the first one was virtual, but I also love the fact that we were able to have breakout rooms. So parents are able to ask those partners more with questions or really specific individualized questions in real time. And the thing that for me this out too is the Assistant League. Mesa has helped us for a long time, but speaking about being, I mean, they have provided water bottles, earbuds. They have clothes for kids that have uniforms, no uniforms. They just have really been on call and a first responder to any that come up on our school site. So all the facilitators on speed dial, and they actually now have a Google sheet that they can up needs, and the Assistance League provides those. So yeah, that is really amazing.
And if I can just add, it would be great in the future with our calendaring, if the DLAC meetings could be on the same exact night time as the Human Relations Task Force, because it would be great if we could attend both, but we have to pick. So a hard choice. So it would be great if they could be moved. And I don't know, Trustee Metway, do you want to give our sports update? Okay.
Thank you. We had a late in the month youth sports committee meeting, which I would like to thank Dr. Bauermeister and Lance Bidnick for being there, because the ones who really give the crest of the message. And the the city also there. It's a compilation for those, because we have talked about this for over. It's a committee for the citizens of Costa Mesa because we use our school field for all of our youth sport and a really good opening discussion. We talk about what we could, what we can't, and the city was pleased to say that they are open again business, so they're taking reservations, and we're working together. Our next meeting is May 1st, so it will be a much typical meeting. It's your first Wednesday every month. So a lot was said and a lot came in, and I'm excited to have it go back again. We're looking at stuff that we haven't had to look for a long time. Once again, we're going to hear how we're not watering the fields because we're heading into a drought, and we know that, but when it was raining a lot, we got trouble for having wet fields. So we are going to look at the Irrigated T-Winkle still, so that's good. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Wagon, did you have anything?
Well, I was adjusting my mask, but I'll say something. I wanted to say another big thank you to everyone. I got students back full time. I just before when we were in closed session, I had to get camera off because my daughter came in. She goes, "Mommy, I could see the morning and afternoon people all at the same time," and it was a really heart-wrenching, amazing thing to hear. And I've heard the same exact people that are so excited that they're back in secondary. I think it really helps out with our freshmen and particularly their seniors to really send them off with bangs. Just thank you everyone that works so hard on that. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Trustee Crane.
Yes, I'd like to, of course, echo everyone's gratitude for everyone who's involved in opening up our schools, and the kids are elated here, only hearing positive. So thank you everyone for the effort. Well, I did attend the Human Relations Task Force meeting on April 21st, and I wanted to read the mission statement of the Human Relations Task Force so the public can hear it. The Human Relations Task Force will be charged with making recommendations to the Newport-Mesa Unified School District, Cabinet, and Board of Education regarding issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion to further the district's ongoing commitment to create safe, respectful, and inclusive schools for all students, families, and community members. These issues can include addressing bias-related incidents, anti-bias education, recommendations for staff, professional development, and parent and student human education, as well as other diversity-related issues. And I was attending the task force. Dr. Baumeister, Dr. Neighbors of UCI presented the working document of our implementation plan. And so that was really very eye-opening and informative. And the highlight is just listening to what is going on around the schools, around the district. For example, early college, high school have a Let's Be Kind. They're a Let's Be Kind school, and they've created a social justice club. At Ensign, the 8th grade, 7th grade literature that focuses on core values. PBIS is also there, and they have a GSA club, which basically involves prioritizing inclusion. And AVID has the program that's called Global Connect. So it's just really wonderful to hear what is going on at our sites in keeping in mind the mission of our Human Relations Task Force statement. So that was it for me, and it is fun to go out to the campuses and attend some of the performances, and I'll let Ms. President ELC speak to that. About our performances, our performance that we attended last week.
You want me to speak to? Okay. And just on the Human Relations Task Force, to go back to that, I believe, because I was also at the meeting, I believe, Dr. Baumeister, correct me if I'm wrong, that you are working to put something on our website so people are aware of what we are doing in the Human Relations, what the task force is doing and what programs are out there. correct. He's nodding his head correct. Not everybody can see him, but yes.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll be able to share more of that information that's already going on in our district that people aren't aware of.
I think just to speak to that, one of the things, I've always been encouraged, and I think we all want to hear more directly from the students, what they're learning, what they're participating in. And there's actually a quote that I read this week from Martin Luther King's daughter, Bernice King, that says, "Kindness matters, but kindness does not equal justice. Courageous conversations matter, but courageous conversations must connect to tangible change or they're unfruitful for freedom. We have to be sure that we go beyond kindness and difficult talks to the work of justice." And I think for a lot of our students, I'm hearing that sentiment, like they're ready, they're wanting to go forward. I think the more that we can highlight what is going on each of those places will encourage and inspire and bring more students along. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think too, there's an opportunity to re-examine a few of our textbook things that have come up a few times. And then I also too, just for my board report part really quickly, if you wanted to share about your event, but I had two things I just wanted to share at some.
Go ahead.
I was just wanting to follow up on the 86. That was about the money for this school year, prioritize student groups. There were the 5 that I read before. And I'm not necessarily hearing we're doing this school year. I know we're doing a lot of planning for next school year, but some of that includes pupils at risk, a lot of our English learners and pupils who have not had as much access to technology. So I just want to make sure that we can see a plan for how how we are following AB6 for this school year. And then I also would like to know when we can expect to hear about secondary summer plans, because I heard a lot of questions. Is there a date that we're making that announcement? Thank you.
And you'll work on that. Do you want to speak to?
So I'll just speak briefly. The summer school plans, I think Lori Horgard had talked about working very closely with the site principals. And what I can do is get the latest on that. It was going to be a little more site specific, but I can get update and share that with the entire board. Okay, hopefully by end of this week. Okay.
Oh, great, thank you.
All right. And then in terms of the funding, definitely there will be a point where we will bring to the board some of the ideas and plans for next year. As you know, there's also the ELK process going on with the stakeholder input, which also surface some additional services for those student populations that you mentioned. And we're fully aware of the focus of the AB 86 funds and make sure that we're connecting what we are spending our money to support not only all kids, but particularly those kids with specialized and increased needs.
Okay, thank you. And we've also heard great stories about what's happened this week. And I know we're patting ourselves on the back, but I think collectively as a district, I've said this to individuals, we should be really proud of what we've accomplished, not just the board or the district staff or just the teachers, but the kids, the parents, everyone involved to get us where we are, because we have teachers who have been back in the class all year long in some capacity. And people watch the national news and they say, teachers have gotten a bad rap for, you see on TV, they're not coming back, they don't come back to the classroom. Our teachers have been back in the classroom. And now they are back pretty much full time, 4 days a week, and full time in elementary school. They're back and they're excited. I've been to probably 14 elementary schools and 2 of the high schools so far, and I plan to get to the others with you. And at every single one, the majority of the teachers are really excited. They know the kids need back in the classrooms. They're excited to have back. And I think we should all be proud of that, because we are a district that wants our kids go, and that literally we've been working toward that this entire year. And I think that's why we're just all so happy this week that we finally got somewhere with that. So I appreciate that. And I just want to know, we've heard a lot of individual stories by, your own kids or friends' kids. And today was for most of the secondary to be back full days, but Principal Bolton sent me a text and he said with some pictures, but his comment, full classes, life, laughter, energy, and in some ways somehow spiritually rejuvenating.
Oh.
And I think that really sends a message that these kids are where they should be. Everyone knows that's where they should be. And as Steve Crane said, I should talk about this, but some of us have had the opportunity to attend performances at school. And it's been fabulous seeing the kids doing what they do best, whether it's a music performance or an indoor play that was done according to COVID standards very safely. And the kids just had so much fun. I know another one at Costa Mesa this weekend. But schools are coming back again. And I think that's what we're all excited about. So we should have with that. Anyway, if there's no further comments, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
In
Honor of Sally Asper.
So moved.
Okay. Moved by trustee Twice, seconded by trustee Anderson. I think we're all in agreement. So thank you very much. Have a good evening, everyone.